Okay, right. So we'll leave the on chant out for now because I think there's some suppression issues going on in the back. So let's keep it moving. Again, sorry to keep going on. Is the sound okay before I start? Okay, right. Now, okay, so we'll leave that slightly for now. Let's drop that volume up slightly. 1 2 1 2. Okay. Okay, right. So let's move on to what we're talking about today. And we've not been on for a few weeks, so I think people may have forgotten some of the stuff where we were in the past. So I'll do a quick introduction and then we can get cracking on. Okay, so we are students of Dr. Malachi Z, York Okran, born June 26, 1945, born to Mary Abba Okran York, also known as Fatima Miriam. As you know, it's called Lotus of Life, and part of that is really re-emphasizing, it's Lotus of Life, Ba'h B'ah Yaanuwn, Gospel to the Sacred Feminine is, I think, its longer title, and it's re-establishing the fact that we are matriarchal. Now, some of you who may have been around a long time or certainly interacted with United Sabians worldwide for many years know that going all the way back, I should say, to 1996, really, and the first chapter in the Holy Tablets really helped us to reestablish as we were moving out of the sort of religious degrees, started to introduce us to the science of mitochondrial DNA, understood mtDNA for short. And so the scientific explanation really was aligning itself back with the kind of cultural setups that we've seen in many places, as I say, in Africa, and certainly well established in our ancient Egyptian culture. So very important sacred feminine, Fatima Miriam. So she was born in Ghana, and so he was born in Ghana, but she is of Ghanaian descent, also of the Iwe tribe, of the Akan tribes in Ghana, which is, as I say, are matriarchal in origin as opposed to patriarchal, understood. So it's very important when we're looking at teachers or leaders, who their parents are, because our genetics are very important, and we'll touch on that a little bit later in the session today. So Mary Abba York, and this is her as we reestablishing back our culture. We can see her here in the attire of the clan mother, or our clan mother, and this was passed on to her daughter Kimanta Mopatauret Atum Reye through that mitochondrial line, and then she was seen as having sufficient skill to then be appointed to that position. Obviously, so when she transitioned, that's gone on to her daughter. So us in re-establishing our culture, we can see that these things are now being gifted back to us for us to now become back into the knowledge of it and then go on to preserve it. And we can see here in the symbols shown here, we see that lotus symbol here, very prevalent throughout our ancient African, ancient Egyptian culture. Kadem Mahmat is the term that is said for ancient Egypt in the Sabatic language. And you can see it's a symbol of regeneration. And so we had a class, Mother Circle of Existence. If you want more on that particular symbol, please feel free to check that out. Now, his father, again, very important figure, Al-Hadi Abdul Rahman Al-Mahdi. So you have the Ghanaian side, and then you have the Sudanese side of the family. Again, birthed in 1922, unfortunately assassinated in 1970, but ties into the Sayyid family in the Sudan, very famous. world-renowned family name there, and ties into this very important figure in our story, Sayyid Muhammad Ahmad al-Mahdi, known as the Mahdi. The word translates as to mean guide, a master spiritualist, again, tying back into our ancient Egyptian culture, pre-dynastic ancient Egypt, Napata and Meroe, or some say Meroe, and a master spiritualist, say, who drove the British and the Turks out of Africa at the behest of the Sudanese. Yeah, so an interesting person. Check out that book if you so wish to do so, to read up on our story pertaining to that side of our lineage. And in our culture, our story is renewed every 24,000 years, and that is done by way of from the heavens downwards, as opposed to digging up bones and analyzing those in terms of archaeology or paleontology and these various different sciences that exist here in the Western Hemisphere. You see that primitive cultures around the world, you don't see them doing that. Understood? So we have to understand that we had a different way of renewing our story as say, time evolved, so to speak, and we lost knowledge through interaction and mixing with other cultures, forcibly in some instances. We lost knowledge of who we are, and certainly in the 400-year so-called kidnapping or slave trade, as they falsely call it, the interaction with our genetics in that regard by the oppressor at that time, the Mukasu, mixing in with our genes, created a hybrid being known as the Negro. You understand? Which ties into the word nekra. It means dead or death. Do you understand? So we looked like our ancestors who had full knowledge of Wu-Sabat. However, we were mentally dead. We were cut off, as I say, from our outformational forces, cut off from our ancestors, and that was replaced with the monotheistic religions that we see today, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and we were mentally dead, you understand, as a people. Yeah, the mummy with their tongue cut out, symbolic of us losing our tie to our language, which again helps us to realign ourselves with natural nature and the frequency of Wu-Sabat within existence. So the way in which our story is renewed, in ancient times, that being was known as Amun, Nabab, Reye, Akhata. Yeah, the ancient Egyptians referred to that being as Tahuti, and many different names in different cultures. And so that's a being or a vessel, as I say, that is birthed into the world, designed, and it allows our ancestors at various points to speak through this individual in order to convey information that we need to aid our transformation from transforming from mortals back into deities again. And we aligned with our own spiritual science. Each of the different races out there has their own spiritual science, and the spiritual science of the Nagaru or Negroid or Black people is known as Wu-Sabat. You understand, there's many different names, but in this day and time, it's known as Wu-Sabat. Being factual information, you understand, a step above what people consider to be faith and belief. Understood? Facts being the best type of knowledge available to us, and it is the spiritual science that unifies us mentally and then allows the physical unity to follow thereafter. So in-housed, or when he first came in 1963, the doctrine of Wu-Sabat that they were teaching was too heavy for the people, and therefore a combination was necessary to walk us through the religious degrees. And then once we had overcome that, then it was a case of giving us what they really came to teach. And we would be ready for that in this day and time. There were a number of different things happening within the society, which, because of how we thought, it would enable us to see certain things confirmed outside of the source, i.e. Dr. Malachi Z York that was teaching us, i.e., so certain media sources and things like that would catch up and confirm what he was teaching to be factually correct. Understood? Now, that is what one may describe as a means to an end almost to some degree, because really and truly, when we teach something, it shouldn't require confirmation from an alternative source, or more importantly, psychologically, the Negro needed confirmation from a white source. So if it was confirmed by white news media or a documentary done by white people, then we accepted it to be true. And so that's a disease and a sickness clearly that need to be overcome. But as he said, I came giving you what you want, so you've learned to want what I really came to give. And so, as you may be familiar, Wu-Sabat is the science of sciences. It is all comprehension, all knowledge. However, the message of it is what is tailored for the people at that time. So you refer to it as the message, or the Balak in the Sabaic language. Yet, so the message, the science of Wu-Sabat is all comprehension, but the message is tailored for the people at that time, because, as I say, our genes have been altered, tampered with, so we're not exactly who our esoteric or spiritual ancestors are, as those Natharu, and so we've tumbled forward and moved away from that. So a message has to be delivered and tailored for the people. Yeah, so the combination that was necessary to deal with the religious degrees was Isa al-Hadi. Al-Mahdi, you see the picture of him at age 25, and the internal whole light being or spiritual being housed within, in order to give the information necessary that we needed in that time, was known as El-Khadir, the green one. Then when the Holy Tablets came in 1996, it was the bridge between religion and reality, and so a new combination was necessary, and that was Dr. Malachi Z York, or ZK York, or Kran, and the internal being was known as Ba'h B'ah Yaanuwn. Understood? And so this was necessary to produce or bring us back, as I say, to this doctrine of Wu-Sabat. And what was different maybe about this combination of a long line of teachers that, as I say, have come to us certainly in the last 6,000 or so years, but more acutely in the last 100, 150 years or so, was, as I say, each one giving a piece of the puzzle, again, bringing us back to the reality of who we are as a people. Understood? And so different in this instance was that this individual was a prolific writer, as you see the depiction of Tahuti with the ma'at feather in his hand, obviously, or the quill, some say, as a prominent writer or administrator, record keeper, master record keeper. And so you see the amount of books that have been released, which no one man on his own could have written that. So you see really by way of the works, you understand, maybe I use that word loosely, the divinity from your ancestors manifesting itself as the power in these books, and certainly in this later day and time, these actual fact series known as the beautiful words, to aid us and transform us, so we can start to produce beautiful works once again, with a new change of mindset, realigning ourselves and not being the image and after the likeness of another race, but rather in the image and after the likeness of who we were designed to be according to natural nature. You understand? So that second resurrection you see from the bottom there of us who were lost, and restoring back, let's say, that guidance for us to fulfill our potential according to natural nature's design. So I'm going to keep the introduction short today. Please check out some sort of previous classes, as I say, if you want more information on who we are. United Sabians Worldwide, all eyes on Egypt, Midlands and North, will bring you the class today. My name's Nabab Kakni Hess, and we're going to get into where we left off from part 4. So let's just see where we are. Okay, so let's see. Right. So we were talking to you, I think, in the previous session about the importance. Well, as I say, we went through the describing about the pineal gland, and we were talking to you about the importance of particularly the relationship between sacred masculine and sacred feminine, so men and women, of how the brain is wired and how we, I suppose, as individuals, not understanding each other's nature, can get into arguments in terms of how we see things. We have to recognize, I suppose, that as men and women, we see the world differently. Yes. And so this is what we were explaining to you in that regard, that sometimes we can get into silly arguments. And there's an old, very old class, you maybe had to find it on YouTube or one of those other areas, called compatibility. A very old class, True Light tape, so over probably 30 or 40 years old now, but very useful. And one of the things that it speaks about on that compatibility tape is the fact that all arguments sounds maybe very simple, but all arguments stem from communication. And so the fact of the matter is that it's very easy to assume what's in somebody's head, and particularly when we're speaking a language where the words in the language have multiple different meanings or double meanings, etc. And it's not necessarily intelligent enough. Excuse me, let me just get a bit of water here. The language itself is not intelligent enough that gives us each word having a unique or singular meaning. This only adds to the confusion. And we can see where the confusion is coming, certainly from a religious perspective, when certain books were translated into other languages, which opens up, these various different verses open up to interpretation. Do you understand? So one set of group of people feel that certain things mean one thing, another set of group of people feel that it means something else. And this has created sex, leading to wars, conflicts, so on and so forth. So in this particular understanding, we have to analyze that men and women see things differently, and the fact that the world, or Parnadaru's view of the world, is that they were returning things back, as I say, to a matriarchal setup and using the power within natural nature in order to do that. So that's what we were touching upon in the last session, which I think is going to be out. If it's on our YouTube page, if you're on our YouTube page, I think in the next week or so, but certainly on our Facebook page, you're going to go and check that out. But this inverse, and we did a long breakdown of the 0 and the 1. You understand? Your binary system, on and off, some may see it as well. But the 0 on this side of matter related to the fact that, also here in the physical, men, we always want to analyze, we're analytical, and the number 1 symbolizing the female, seeing things how they are. Do you understand? So the one who's really in tune with reality. Understood? And in Actual Facts series number 19, Who is God, Male or Female? Very important book or scroll for people to get hold of if they can do from your local All Eyes in Egypt store. I'm not trying to pitch you a sales pitch, but very important book. And the reason why is because when you are analyzing where this confusion comes in and how religions really got created is because of this separation away from reality, or male separation away from reality. So when you look at that or listen to that, the Dr. York, the affirmation, and you see us talking about or pa'ut, you understand, which basically is, existence, for lack of a better word. And remember, creation or growth takes place within existence, yes, and not outside of it. So existence precedes creation. In order to create, you must exist. The word create in Wu-Sabat, it means growth. You understand? More specifically, growth into system or form. And then destruction, which is its opposite, means change in system or form. Understood? So it's important that we start to become more intelligent, I suppose, with our own definitions of what things mean in our spiritual science, not what they necessarily generally mean to everybody else. So importantly is that when you think about pa'ut, or, within or, you have pa'ut, yeah? So the or with the definite article. And very quickly, I mean, some of you may be familiar with this already, but very quickly, you can see that when you think about it, when you was a baby or a child in your mother's womb, as far as you were concerned, and remember, our consciousness within that growth process gets switched on around about month 6, understood, of us being in the womb. And what we understand is that to us, that was existence, isn't it? That was all. We didn't know there was an outside world at that particular point, understood? In our mother's womb, that was pa'ut to us from our perspective. Do you understand? Yes? Now, but the mother, obviously, would be the all, carrying the child. She will be the all within all. You understand? Because she is all to the child that she is carrying. She is that version of existence for the child she is carrying. Now, when you were birthed, you understand? Yes, when you were birthed, yes, the all is I am. Yeah? So you became a I am when you were birthed. And when you looked back at your mother, you saw, whoa, that's not pa'ut. Yeah, because you see your mother is a part or within existence. So you see your mother is the all within all. You understand? And you are a I am. Yeah, because you came out of your mother. So you became a I am. Understood? And so in that regard now, yes, we see that as an I am, not to confuse everything, but as an I am, it's all about you to you. You are the center of the universe, or you are the center of the multiverses. Yeah, it's all about you to you. Everything is revolving around you. Understood? Yeah, from your perspective. And when we understand how our eyes work, we understand the fact that the image is being created internally inside the person's head. It is not externally there. So we are taking in light. Obviously, it's hitting our retina upside down. We then formulate a three-dimensional holographic image in our brain of what we perceive that we are looking at, and we then project that outwards. You understand? So the reflection part is because we're taking in those light particles onto our retina, and then we're projecting out our interpretation of what we're looking at. And that is what we see, at least here in the physical thing. So the point being said is that here is that you have not really confirmed the existence of another human being. As far as you are concerned, and you haven't even really looked at what you really look like. You are looking at an interpretation, or your interpretation, when you look in the mirror, of what you look like. And an interpretation of the world is from your perspective. And you've not really confirmed the existence of another human being, or certainly the male has not confirmed the existence of another human being. It's all about you to you. But when a woman is with child, yes, she now has confirmed that somebody else other than herself is real. Yeah, because she can feel how she feels about herself from her perspective. She can feel that from the perspective of a child, and therefore has confirmed existence outside of her own head. Do you understand? Yes? So this is very powerful when it comes to us in our journey to getting back to the reality of who we are. Because it is males who are responsible for creating monotheistic religion, which deals with speculation, not facts. Yes? What happens after death? Where is heaven? What is in heaven? Etc. If you look at religion, it is about speculation. It's the interpretation of dreamers. Yeah, we have been sucked into the author's word. When it comes to the Bible, the Quran, Torah, so on and so forth. Yeah, we are locked into the imagination of those authors who wrote down that book and translated it from other texts and mixed it with other texts. We are locked in to their imagination, their interpretation of certain events, which even to today have not been proven outside of the book to be true. So women are not responsible for the problems that arose out of religion. This is what the master teacher, as the liberator of women, was expressing to us over these years. Nothing to do with being a simp or anything of that nature. It is to do with the fact of accepting how our world that we live in is structured. Yeah, and how a lot of confusion has arisen simply from ignorance, us not understanding our own natural design and who we are. So women are in touch with reality because this is the being who has confirmed the existence of another person. Even when you look at yourself as your physical body, for example, remember that's a composite, isn't it? You're 1/3 your mother, 1/3 your father. The two coming together creates a new being or a new you. So that's a composite. You're not necessarily looking at the essence or the ba'ah, the you understand, the ka'ah of a person when you're looking at their physical structure. You understand? Because if something's real to some degree, it can't be broken down into subsequent parts. Do you understand? Yeah. So this is why certainly in the world of light or the world of matter, yeah, it's considered the illusionary world. Yeah, because things are not what they are. They are what they appear to be. Understood. So this book is very important in it, retraining almost our minds to accept the fact that, hey, those who are in charge, the Muadamu, the Mukasu, the Caucasian race, who have controlled the information sources and degrees which they got out of ancient Egypt in the Sun, where, as I say, they only were given 2 degrees out of the 9 degrees, and then they have gone on to seek to really inform the world about certain esoteric facts, one might say. Now, this is where now there's confusion reigned in, because they didn't really understand what they were reading, because they got a lot of that information under false pretenses and then sought to establish themselves as the authority within the world through those 3 words which you're familiar with: author, authority, authentic. So if you don't have enough authors, you do not become the authority, and therefore you don't decide what is or what is not authentic. Yeah, and this is how facts, at least in this society, get established, or interpretation of facts get established. You read even in their own story of whether it's Isaac Newton or, various people who went against the grain, so to speak, in terms of the status quo of information, trying to advance new viewpoints or thinking maybe about scientific advancements and things of that nature, and how they were attacked, do you understand, marginalized. Only after their death were things then established. Well, there was something in what he was saying about gravity, for example, and things of that nature. Now, these are things that when we go to our story, we find much more detail about that. However, a lot of that information, unfortunately, has been lost, hence why you need this Amanobi Ra'akata or Amanabagre Akta, again, re-established to renew our story, in the same, because our ancient records are kept etherically, not just in the physical. Understood? And so using that reservoir of information is now, or outformation, I should say, then presented to us in the form of information is necessary for us to renew our story. So importantly, as I say, is that women are closer, or really because they represent existence, then obviously they're closer to reality. Yes, although as men, you think about the birthing process, we can speculate what it may feel like. Some men may even get, as I say, what they call sympathetic pains or whatever through the pregnancy process. But you're not, we're not experiencing that reality. Yeah, it's just part of the limitations of who we are. We've got other skills and talents and abilities that are of use, but we have to acknowledge none of us would be here except by way of the womb of a woman. Do you understand? At least those who are born into this world and are aligned genetically as children of this planet. You understand? And as I say, which is a water environment, even though they refer to it as earth. So we were touching upon the importance of that, and in the book is obviously giving examples of how we as male and females think differently. And so in part 4, we were exploring that in a little bit more detail. And sure, this kind of pseudo argument, I see a lot of these media things on YouTube and different things where men and women are going back and forth between each other. As I say, whether it's a reality in life or just a reality on the net, which is probably more closer to the truth, because how can somebody say, oh, they know men or women? They've not done more extensive research to understand really different characters, different nature. And remember, they're not coming from a factual point of view. Each person's coming from their own experience of certain situations in that regard. And so, as I say, and really what you've got is this kind of hybrid, religious hybrid of what a woman is supposed to do or what a man is supposed to do. So even though the people are not religious in all these instances, it's coming from that religious perspective, which was taught from the monotheistic religion, that the woman was created to be a helpmate to her man. And so in the new hereafter and thereafter doctrines, that gets addressed. You understand? That's nothing to do with our culture. And the woman was never made to be a helpmate for man. Yeah? Woman preceded man. And even as you see in the language, you see lady has the word lad in it. Woman has the word man in it. Do you understand? You can see that the greater gave birth to the lesser. Yeah, not the other way around. Religion taught you that. You understand? Or monotheistic religions taught you that. And even today, scientifically, where they understand because of mitochondrial DNA that this cannot be factually correct. This is still advanced within, particularly the Western Hemisphere and permeated into the Eastern Hemisphere, which has stunted, as I say, the intelligence of our people today. So very important for us to get back to matriarchal thinking. And, it requires men to be great in what they do, Partarak, Sabian on the Wapian man, seek out that. And then you've got Partarak, Sacred Feminine, which again sets out our roles And there are several different scrolls which really attack different issues, which, as I say, from the religious ignorance that's been placed in our minds, it really tackles and deals with that. So we were really looking at one of the things about the sexual process as well, because I said process, but the act of sex, the art and the science of sex, and that's where we were at the last time. Yeah. So we were going through various different the understanding, because one of the things, if women, the suppression of women and the suppression of women experiencing sexual pleasure is a fundamental part of monotheistic religion. Yeah, so remember the kind of progenitor of monotheistic religion, i.e. Abraham, you understand, who seemingly gave birth to Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, you understand, he considered to be the father of those religions, when he encountered the Pharaoh, because in order to hide the beauty of his wife, he put his wife in a box, you understand? So the person that they look up to, you know, in no disrespect, but was a punk. You understand? I mean, that's what you Americans use in your terminology. There's other more colourful language I could use that we say in England. But basically, he was intimidated that another man was going to take his woman from him, so he put her in a box. You understand? Which led to, their Lord or God or whatever said, listen, Abraham, you can't do that. You can't do that, brethren. You can't do that. And therefore, the veil was created as a result of that. The issue is that it's a suppression from a male intimidation, male insecurity perspective that covers up the woman's beauty. Now, obviously, lust has come into the picture, certainly prominent in the Western Hemisphere. We don't see it so much if you look at the primitive cultures, and primitive does not mean backwards. In the word prime, it means best. So we see that they're able to move around each other. When lust is not in the picture, you know, people are walking around with their breast, penis out, vagina out, whatever, and no one's really tripping over it in that regard. But obviously here in the West, it's completely different, because the way sex or the sixth force has been used to sell a lot of different things. My point being made is not to redo part number 4. The point is that the female enjoyment of the sexual process has been suppressed by monotheistic religion. Do you understand? And there's a lot of ignorance around sex. You understand? If we really think about it, it's religious kind of ideologies made us ashamed of it. You understand? Like it's a bad thing, even though it's part of our natural nature. You've got natural sexual acts, and you've got unnatural sexual acts. And this is not about the unnatural side of things, but pushing us more towards the natural side of things and the spiritual growth that is linked to the sexual process. Very powerful process, do you understand? Within, as part of who we are. And we understand that if a woman, for example, and then that suppression of women's sexual desire, women's sexual experience, etc., through monotheistic religion has led to the suppression of the female orgasm. Do you understand? And one of the things that we understand, and we were teaching in part 4, informed by the master teacher, is that if a woman does not experience an orgasm, then that is an automatic have to come back around again and use one of those 24,000 opportunities to master this plane. So a woman is incomplete without experiencing the orgasm. So you can see that we're a male-dominated sexual process, and in, as I say, religion, the suppression of that, many women have not experienced orgasms. Males have them all the time, but women have not necessarily experienced that, and maybe even don't even know that how to have an orgasm or even experience it. because of all the ignorance around the sexual process, the art and science of sex. So we were touching into various points. I think we got to this around this slide or area, which this verse out of Lotus of Life, we were talking about here. So these are the feminine's erogenous zones. So we focus on 9 of those, or informed about 9 of those. And the parts of her khatat body that arouse sexual desire, when you learn just how to touch her as well as when to touch her and where to touch her, a must know for all lasting relationships. Do you understand? So this idea that women are supposed to be subservient to men in Wu-Sabat is eroded once we start to pick up the facts of our culture again. Understand? It is a circle and a square, equal but different. Both of them 360 degrees. Women representing the circle at certain points, men the square. Understood? Both 360 degrees, but different, at least on the physical plane. When we start to step into the etheric side of who we are, there's no gender discussion. But as I say, we are having in the physical form, then the gender at least is important to a certain point. Obviously, as we get older, it becomes less important. So men were created by women to build effectively and to protect. Yeah? And so nature is moving us back to those realities, understood. So our society is then structured appropriately in line with natural nature, which is our ancestors when they were living or in tune with the science of Wu-Sabat, understood. We were living, obviously, this thing called life in order to prepare us, as say, for the next level of existence. You understand? Because it's our ancestors who laid the evolutionary, I'll say revolutionary, maybe is a better word to say, pathway for us, as I say, to grow and transform to become 720 beings again. You understand? 360 degrees mastery of the physical, 360 degrees mastery of the esoteric, you understand, or spiritual, to become 720 beings once again, you understand, at the point of death. So we were explaining to you, obviously, the importance about the various different positions and why some of the sexual processes that we've been taught and why these positions may not work, you understand, because of where the Grafenberg spot, or this G spot, as it's known as, is positioned. Do you understand? And so here in this upper vaginal area, and this important thing in 450, each vagina or zahar, you call it a flower, each flower has its own configuration to be unlocked. So not all women are the same, or not all the flower is not the same. And so both have to use, I suppose, communication in order to unlock, as I say, the inner workings of this work of art, as it's described, or flower, in order to get it to yield its fruit in the form of women experiencing a orgasm. Do you understand? So it's a natural part of who we are. And if we go in the positive direction in our use of sex, then, as I say, it can enhance, it can heal, you understand, it can raise a person's spiritual vibration, but it's a form of pleasure. And so remember, the science, or natural science in terms of natural rules, is, remember, for each amount of pleasure experience, you must experience an equal amount of pain. So therefore, we're looking for the maximum amount of pleasure with the least adverse results. Do you understand? This is how we should use our sexual powers. And we understand, we've said it before, we understand that when, as a people, for example, us as the Nagaru people, the Negroids, when we're on the come up in the situation we're in, that, sex cannot be used cannot be used, but we must limit how we used it as a means of offsetting pain that we're going through, or offsetting, maybe life is not great and things of that nature. So we use sex as a method to kind of zone out a little bit, do you understand? Or alleviate us from the conditions that we find our in by experiencing that pleasure, because it creates more burden upon us as we're obviously seeking to come up. Do you understand? So if children are born unwanted and things of that nature, this creates extra burden for us in terms of our come up. So as you know, Wu-Sabat in this day and time is informing you 6 or sex representing physical power, 9 representing mental power, and we're becoming more mental than physical. So the mind must dominate the physical in our decisions that we're making around the sexual process, how we use it, and we want to avoid misusing it. Understood. Now, any questions? Okay, can't see any questions at the moment there. Just checking any raised hands. Okay, so no questions at the moment. Okay, so we can see here, maybe obviously older women understand this more so. The younger women or younger sacred feminine certainly need to understand this as well, about the sacredness of this Zahar flower, in the workshop of the ancestors, I should say, divine being there. And the fact that it should be healthy, fresh, and clean. Do you understand? As in the garden. So it's a water environment. Like any orifice in the human body, it can be a home for bacteria and germs, and if not managed correctly, can create odors, which, as I say, can, in the context of male to female relationships, can, certainly turn men off and away, even where they won't even inform the person that there's an issue with their vaginal area or the scent that arises from that. So what you eat and what you take in becomes part of your being, understood? And so when we look at this sort of formula here arising from the book, we can see when vegetable spoils, no odor, but then when meat and flesh spoil, we get an odor. So the odor is informing about there is some issue inside of the woman's body that needs to be addressed and tackled. And obviously what I suppose sacred feminine obviously understand about this is that this can be a very embarrassing situation. And sometimes, depending on who the partner is, as I say, you may not get that opportunity to rectify that situation before your name is being run in streets, and depending on the character of the person, they might not inform you because it's embarrassing on both sides. So it's important, as I say, to make sure that you're self-aware at least of these types of issues. You understand? Because, as I say, it can be highly embarrassing and you don't always get an opportunity. The person's not always going to tell you, there's a problem. Do you understand? In that regard. Now, we understand that, again, compatibility can be a problem in this regard as well. So, male semen is not compatible with the female body. Let's just get that correct. And simply because it does not add the genetic markers of the woman. So this in itself can create problems, let's say, in this area. And so they say cleanliness is next to godliness, according to what they teach. But that really goes back to a science in ancient Egypt where bad bacteria was considered to be the devil. Do you understand? So the opposite of cleanliness is bad hygiene or uncleanliness, understood? And so that is considered to be the devil. That was the devil to us, at least in ancient Egypt. Bad bacteria, microbes, viruses, etc., because they kill and you can't see them. Do you understand? You can't see the AIDS virus. You can't see COVID-19. Do you understand? Certain things you can't see, but they kill. You understand? So the way to eradicate those issues is better or hygiene. This is why we had some derogatory terms at certain points for Europeans because of their poor hygienic practices. Do you understand? So the reason why we consider sex to be sacred in this regard is because we must treat it with, you know what I mean, the highest care, highest regard with these types of things. Understood? Yeah, so really and truly, this thing of, I think more the bottom part that we're looking at here, because I think we covered this before in a previous class. But, we shouldn't be engaging in sexual activity without, bathing or showering, being absolutely clean in that regard. We shouldn't be having sex while sick, you understand? So if we're sick, obviously, again, the potential, as I say, remember when you're producing, there's always a potential in many instances, not in a lot, of a child being produced. And so therefore, it's a carbon copy of where you are at that particular moment. Do you understand? So sex weakens both of us in different ways. So when, as I say, are physically weakened by sex, and then women's DNA is weakened by sex. And so therefore, we must be careful, as I say, in terms of treating the actual process of us being at least at our relative best when engaging in sexual activity, although we know how powerful lust is and can be, you understand? But this is where the mind must rule the body and override lust or love, however you want to call it, in this regard. You understand? So there's no such thing as having sex on a menstrual cycle and things like that. These are unnatural behaviors, which say maybe in some quarters this is fine, this is okay, but this will be unnatural in our culture. And as you can see on the screen, that menstrual cycle is an internal cleaning process for the woman. It's not a state of uncleanliness. It is a rejuvenation, so to speak, as we talked about previously when we showed you the picture of Arashta or Isis holding the lotus flower with the Tet symbol, which looks like a small human being. And you can see there, as I say, that this is a symbol of renewal, internal renewal, which must be respected. Do you understand? So, keep your lust at bay to not cause injury to the person that you say you love. Now, the issue is that when you think about the incarceration of the master teacher and, what Wu-Sabat or what he brought, that balag or the message of Wu-Sabat tailored for us in this day and time, it was fighting against, and we're still fighting against, the sex force that we see in the Western Hemisphere by the Mukasu and their society. Do you understand? So yes, we enjoy some of the greatest freedoms in the world today, whether it be in the US or UK. We enjoy some of the greatest freedoms, or Europe. However, it's also producing some moral decay, do you understand? Cultural decay within, obviously, the children being born. We can see that, this gift of rap music or hip hop that was given for us to take on board this new outformation and basically be able to spit it to the world in the form of information was hijacked by these forces. And now it's almost unrecognizable from its original origins, where at least there was some balance, understood? But it was a method of, obviously, young people or even the world being informed, you understand, when they call it, now it's called conscious rap, you understand? But it wasn't just conscious rap, that was just rap, you understood? And it had, certainly a lot more colors to it than it's maybe perceived to be now, understood? And so this is what it produces, where it's turning this newfound power, this newfound liberation, and it's being interpreted to be overly sexual, almost extreme in its sexual production. And this is what their stuff produces, designed to destroy the genes or produce genetic confusion, understood, in term, rather than, yes, obviously, of course, we must free up women to experience the fullness of her sexual powers and desires, etc., and remove, as I say, some of the barriers that were put in place unnaturally in that regard. But at the same time, you are who you are, as men are who we are. You can't just do what you want in nature. Well, you can, but all actions have consequences. And he knows what he's doing when he's paying thousands of or millions of dollars and pounds to individuals to be overly sexual in that regard. So you can see there's a clear distinction between the 6 mind and the 9 mind. So this is what they were afraid of with the incoming of Wu-Sabat and the coming in, say, of Dr. Malachi Z, York, and Ba'h B'ah Yaanuwn, because young people would start to now come back, you understand? Obviously still accentuate the beauty, understood, but not necessarily it being with the power of lust. Now, lust is necessary in the sexual process, otherwise we wouldn't keep coming back to want to have more and more children. But its misuse is the problem, understood? So, of course, the natural nature of women is to be admired, and we have to understand that. The natural nature of women, yes, obviously, is to show off, be expressive, do you understand, in that regard. And that's part of the nature, and that's part of something that we should respect and admire. Admire doesn't mean touch, understood? Or take, as we see in their Bible in Genesis chapter 6, understood? So, but this is what Wu-Sabat produces. This is what they were afraid of. This is why they trumped up those charges to keep that master teacher away from his people, because this is Wu-Sabat and what young people interpreting that doctrine have started now to produce. Do you understand? And we see the royalty. We see the regality. Do you understand? We see the beauty. We see something worthy to be admired. You understand? And we see the clear distinction between this, understood, and what we're seeing here as this. You understand? Which we saw, as I say, on the walls in ancient Egypt. Yeah, so this is what they want to stop. Yeah, us being worthy again. Do you understand? As supreme beings. Yes, Nwep Mukwan or Nwep Mukwani. Supreme beings once again, not niggers. You understand? And so we must not get confused between nature restoring the woman back to her position, understood, and then what we see is an interpretation of that through as a hip-hop culture and the media as we see it around the world today in that regard, where they're normalizing, say, unnatural, arguably sexual behavior designed to destroy the genes. Now, what I'm saying is, if it's just about equality, can men and women do what they want to do? Well, yes, they can do, but unfortunately, there are consequences based on your physical structure. Do you understand what I'm saying? So the reality is you can make any choices you want to make. But as a deity, as a god, you have to accept that the consequences that come with those decisions that we make. Now, the issue is that what's your pathway? Because if your pathway is that for self-destruction, and YOLO, as I say, you only live once, which is what the Makasu's pathway is, because he knows he doesn't have a Ba'ah in that regard, and therefore has no pathway to ascend, to experience life after death or life after life. Do you understand? So he knows that this is it for him. So getting everybody on that vibration is him wanting everybody to self-destruct based on his pathway. And that's got nothing to do with us, and nothing to do with, it's not racism. That's how their ancestors designed them to be. So if there's an issue around it, take it up with your gods, take it up with your lords, take it up with your most high. You understand? Take it up with those who created your Bible, your Quran, and so on and so forth. It's nothing to do with us talking about black supremacy or anything of that nature. Your gods did that. Your gods created racism. Your gods created sexism out of Genesis chapter 3, verse 15. That's your doing that's permeated around the world today. Nothing to do with us. We just got caught up in the mix and now trying to unravel that and declaims that from our genetics so we can be open, as I say, to receiving the true power of outformational power that we receive to inform our informational present being. So, as I say, this is their plan, or this was their plan of action in that regard. And as I say, one of the most powerful things is that it's been the liberation, as I say, or they call them the liberator of women in that regard, simply because of reestablishing, as I say, these facts around who the sacred feminine is, in line, as I say, with natural nature. Now, let's why matriarchal? So why is this important? Do you understand? Now, I see a lot of modern interpretations of this, but as I say, if you really look in our doctrine and you look at where the master's really been teaching this, or master teacher been teaching this, you can go back to 1996 and go back even further. You understand? To the sort of bulletins in religion, even back then. So you're going back into the early 90s. Yeah, there's an article called The Liberator of Women. I haven't put it up to date. Maybe if in a future session you might do that. But it's called The Liberator of Women. And so it's designed to show that even back then, within those, when we were cloaked in the monotheistic religions, the master was seeking, let's say, to align you with natural nature again, to move us back to matriarchal and setting us up so that it wouldn't appear foreign to us when we obviously now would receive the new cycle information. Now, here we see why we matriarchal. Well, it's an understanding of existence, and it's an understanding of the systems that have been put in place by our ancestors. So if you look at this Takanth, Salvation, Master Secrets number 14, verse 16, very important. It says here, we, Parnathara, the overseers, have designated a genetic system, a scientific system of natural rules of nature, and they are on the outside of the natural rule. Yeah, talking about the Muadamu, the Adamites. Yeah, a set of genetic principles to each creature of these species and entities to which we all submit. So there's no outside of existence. You understand? And the beauty, as I say, of nature's rules, understood, is that it's basically almost an autonomous system. Do you understand? What has happened to us is we have been devoid of any understanding of how these rules work and how to best use them to our advantage for optimized living. Okay, if you understand, remember in the Right Knowledge series released in the 90s, it gave you a definition of the spell into racial blindness and spiritual ignorance. That was one of the definitions of the spell. Racial blindness, not knowing who the evil one is in the many different forms that they present themselves in. Do you understand? Yeah, the devil doesn't have a color, as a purpose. Do you understand? So recognizing, loosely what is for you and what is not for you, or what is against you. Do you understand? This is having some understanding of that in the things that we see. Yes, so we talked about this previously in terms of the role of the media and how this is one of the ways in which they have advanced their power in terms of white supremacist thinking, and then, all other races submitting to the image of the beast as they would have it as, and you think about it, most things in that regard have been established through television and now obviously the internet and various other things. Stereotypes, which should be rightfully called monotypes, which then lead to injustice because of decisions made, based on people acting off of biases and things of that nature. A lot of this has come through television, media programs. It's almost like the media is, in the 70s, they had these films called black exploitation or black exploitation movies, which, took, the stereotypes, as they call them, which should be monotypes, to extremes, you understand, of the black race. But if you had black exploitation movies, then what is the rest of the media? It's really black humiliation, yeah, of various different degrees or types, depending on what you see. I think most programs that you watch, even that seek to be positive, have some element of humiliation within the program. You understand? Because we're not controlling the media in that regard. Yeah, so it is humiliation to varying degrees in terms of the characters. Yeah, now this is obviously seeking to change, but it's always, well, we give positivity with one hand, and then, we're going to deliver some kind of embarrassment on the other hand. And you know the power of imagery, yeah, because you understand the power of the mind. Understand? And in the book, one of the Supreme Mathematics series, Who Lived on the Earth, I think before the Adam and Eve story, something like that title, there, it talked about certain groups of extraterrestrials were interested in the fact that human beings, as part of their natural nature, have what is known as a collective mind, that we're able to join our minds together collectively and change our reality simply by using the power of the mind. So controlling the imagery is really important, because remember, imagination is two words. It's image and nation. Understood? So if you control the minds of the people, you're going to control the image of the nation that they present and how they see themselves, etc., etc. So this is the conflict, as you know. This is what they call the Aquarian age, wasn't it? You understand? Yeah. From the Piscean age, which was the era of water, yeah, physical rituals, etc., etc., moving into the era of Aquarius, which is the air sign, according to what they teach, you understand? But that's moving from physical to ether, and even in their, I'll leave that for the moment. But the air of ether, so it's a battle of mental, it's a battle of the mind, it's a war of information, do you understand? Which is taking place, which you're seeing certainly from the 60s all the way down to where we are today. Understood? Yeah, which is a battle of information. Who can control the minds of the people? Now, ours is not to control, or our ancestors are not interested in control of the minds, simply that you are informed to have a fair choice of what direction you choose to go in. So do you want to go in the way of the Natharu? Fair choice, because all of the options, all of the information has been presented to you. Or are you still being tricked, where somebody wants to take advantage and use the energy of your soul to power, obviously, their liberty? Do you understand? Like a parasite feeding off of the host in that regard. And as we say, religion is set up for that, isn't it? The science of religion is the interference of the dead into the lives of the living, not the practice of religion, the science of it. Yeah? Because dead forces must subsist off the living in order to survive. Do you understand? So these rules that have been put in place, as I say, means, as I say, in 17, each race, each creature, you understand, is locked in to a certain frequency cycle within natural nature. Do you understand? And therefore, certain rules that govern our existence will be different or vary from creature to creature. Do you understand? And of course, there'll be commonalities because we're all within the same environment. I mean, dealing with the planet Earth, for example. But that doesn't make us the same. You understand? It doesn't make us the same. And so we have to understand these rules as we now start to come back into knowledge of who we are and apply them according to who we are, not who everybody else is. You understand? Now, obviously, when you go in a workplace or you're interacting within a society and there are laws, etc., to follow, obviously you're in the environment, you're going to adapt accordingly. You understand? But you may create an entity within your own being that deals with that side of things, understood, but not lose who you are in that regard. You understand? So you may have a professional version of you that interacts in certain environments, understood, and you must move accordingly, for survival whilst you're in a land which is not your own. But at the same time, you must always cultivate the real you. Do you understand? Which is obviously now we are more coming into the knowledge of how to do that. And reading is important. There's no thing of I'm just a spiritual person. Let me check out of certain organizations and things. I just be on my own and do my own thing. You understand? Well, if you are really listening to Partak Yud, that's a pathway to failure, isn't it? Yeah, we are seeking to become part of the all, not separating ourselves. So there's no me doing one thing or good in one area and not good in other areas. For you to be holistic, you have to be good in all areas. You must master the doctrine that's been given, you must master spiritual practice, must master diet, all these different things. You've got to master finances and money, do you understand? In that regard, better to have it and not need it than don't have it and need it. Do you understand? So the society runs on money. Do you understand? So the fact of the matter is we need it, or regular income at least, a decent level in order to survive. You understand? So you can work your way out of his system and his society. So you need it. So you can't even ignore that side of things. You have to be holistic. Understood? But the point being made is that the rules are in place. And as we need to get better understanding of them and utilize them in our regard. When we say we are not alone, that's a very important statement there. You have to remember that. Sometimes you can find yourself in situations where you are tunnel visioned. Yes, it feels like, man, there's no options, there's no way out. Boom, boom, boom. And if it goes down too much down that rabbit hole, some people even take their life and all kind of things of that nature. So you need to always remember, that you've got your ancestors there and establish your altar and your ability to communicate with them, because that is part of who you are. That's part of your being. And certain times, we can use that help to intervene and help us manage the toughness of this, physical existence that we find ourselves within. Now, 18, of your 24,000 chromosomes in your genomes, you are always using 24%. The other 76% is jumping DNA and satellite DNA and interfacing with the morphic field. So we understand that these configurations, that 24% of our DNA is in a transient state and is reacting to the environment that we find ourselves in. And so they have a term that they use called epigenetics. Understood, so you can look that up. But basically, even the sound of my voice, where you are in the environment where you are, your DNA is reacting to that. And you have 76% of the other side of your DNA, which is not in a static state, but it's more in a fixed position, but it's interfacing, as it's saying, in the morphic field. The word morphic means shape. So the planet, this particular planet, has a field around it that stores shape information about species. Understood? So you understand that your cells in their more simple form, so your what they call stem cells in their baby form, are undesignated. Do you understand? But when they're placed in a certain area within the human body as we grow, yes, that area or the environment then communicates with the morphic field, and therefore it can inform the cell now of the design that it's supposed to grow into. Do you understand? So a stem cell, which is undesignated, if it's placed in the heart area, it's going to, for lack of a better word, download, yes, the shape information from the morphic field. So the planet is storing the shape information, understood? And as we interact with that field, obviously because we're part of the planet, yeah, it can alter the growth and future design almost of our future DNA, so children being born into the future based on our development interaction right now in the here and now. Do you understand? So, for example, as the master expressed, if we master the Sabaic language, yes, remember, we're making it easier potentially in the future for other Negroids who are vibrating the same frequency of us to learn that language in the future. Whereas now, children of the future will be born with a Sabaic accent. So for a language that was dead and gone, or essentially not spoken on this planet for many thousands of years, being reintroduced now, this affects the field. Do you understand? So even the master teacher coming with Wu-Sabat in this day and time to bring back the true mind of the Negro, you understand? And bed the Negro and restore back their true mind, that connection for us to the mental again, is altering the morphic field. You understand? And so we need to be aware, as you all on this call need to be aware, as I also need to be aware, that how you conduct yourself, how you behave, how you internalize this information, how you apply these rules affects your race, not just you as an individual. Yeah, so individuals learning this information, even if they're not readers, that's where you're showing the love for your race. When you are managing your lust, you understand? That's when you are showing love for your race. Yeah, so you're making racial decisions and doing what's best for the race, not just you as an individual. So certain things you are learning, not just because of your straight up interest, you are learning to develop your being. You understand? Like, you eat you're going to have meat on the plate. If you're a meat eater, you're going to have meat on the plate. You're going to have vegetables and other things on there. You understand? For balancement. So, yeah, and you cultivate yourself to do things that you don't like to do because you know it's for the good of the family. Do you understand? And for the wider context, the good of the race and good of natural nature. Because we as a race can't be in a dysfunctional position and expect certainly this planet, this solar system, and even this universe to work. Yeah, so you can see, as I say, as it is expressed in the 9 ball, that which is best for the race is always best for the individual. That which is best for the individual is not always best for the race. Do you understand? So you know what sacrifice really means in that regard when you start to really think in those terms. And let's just see if there's any questions before I move on to the next section. That's on the screen. So question from Hatshepsut. Is 0 time point the same as your birthday when you entered this Mawak planet, Toltaxamal? Good question. Very good question. So let's explore that. Yeah, let's explore that. So what Hatshepsut is talking about there. So in fact, let's move on to, in fact, 19, so in fact, you are responding to alterations in your state of consciousness. 20, your satellite DNA's ability to expand the number of repeating sequences means an increase in the outformation to your information learning capacity of your DNA. So, as we know, we are being outformed. Wu-Sabat transforms, the definition of Wu-Sabat transforms information into outformation. So understanding this, at least for the understanding of this, is that you are information, or you are in a certain formation. And outformation is needed to change your form. Understood? Now, 21, to DNA, as a fractal antenna, DNA interacts with the etheric of space, time, and vacuum, terms which are synonymous in this context with your zero time point of point zero, Nashat energy, which interacts with your consciousness. So these images at the side denote sort of fractal antenna, which is a more efficient way of us drawing in outformation and using it in this context. So fractal antennas are things that are used in mobile phones and a lot of new technology where you are seeing a lot of data transmission over can be long distances or even short distances where there's a need for communication. Do you understand? And so it is a more efficient way of, as I say, energy or information transfer. Now, to answer the question about 0 point, let's look at the Holy Tablets. And we're going to look at chapter 1, tablet 7 here, and understand about all these differences between zero time reference, set time, fake time, and understand what this 0 point is. Yeah. So now this is, I'm not going to go through all this because we're going to be here forever, but that people are aware of the Philadelphia experiment, where the US government were basically trying to do an experiment where they were using teleportation of a warship. You understand? So between teleportation, i.e. moving it from one location to the other, as well as disappearing a warship out of visible sight range. You understand? For, as I say, advancement in the war that they were fighting. You understand? This is around World War II times. You understand? Taking place in the 40s. Now, to keep it very short, what they failed to factor in was that each human being, because basically when the experiment happened and the warship, you understand, reappeared, you understand, aircraft carrier reappeared, you know, basically some of the people on the crew and the ship went mad. Others were fused with in the bulkheads within the ship because basically they had failed to account for what is known as this 0 time reference. So each individual, when they are born, has this 0 time reference from the point of inception. So we're going to just break this down now and go through so you understand these various differences. Yeah. Now, we did talk about it. Some people might be thinking, well, what's this got to do with Lotus of Life? Well, obviously, we were talking to you about the power of the pineal gland, understood? Yeah, and us having the ability to move interdimensionally and to move between different times, because we're dealing with the power of now, which has multiple ends of the past, multiple ends of the future, and we deal with now, and you break the speed of light, then you are able to, as I say, move through what is perceived as time, i.e. past, and what some consider to be future. Now, let's work through this. So we're going to start from, let's start from 61. So it's saying that the scientists had no understanding of the human psychic love, nor the metaphysics of the earth, that also has a biorhythm like the human body, because it's also a living entity. So that biorhythm, really evidence of it, it's called Schumann's resonance, if you want to look up that and do your own research. Yeah, the biorhythm of the planet. Now, it kind of peaks every 10 years. Do you understand? It used to be on the 0 of the decade, but now, because of this experiment, time has jumped 3 years forward. So it's on the 3 of the decade. So Ba'h Yaanuwn, 2013, 2023, etc. Yeah, you see that meaning. So everybody has a zero time reference different from everyone. These factors cause strange phenomena that occurred on the ship. All human beings have a time reference. Now they are locked at zero time, which is a set time created during the beginning of an experiment. 64. For humans, it is the point at which every individual is conceived and continues on to gestation period until they are born. So set time, yeah. So this set time in experiment, obviously, is from the beginning to the end. In us as human beings, it's obviously from conception, understood, until the point where we're born. This is set time. Understood? Conception to birth, this is set time. So make notes on that. Set time. It is 65. It is locked to the time stream, as he calls it, and is locked so that he can relate to society, civilization around him, and flow at the same rate as everybody else, and has a reference that remains with him throughout his or her life until he or she dies, at which the soul goes on and on, can come back and reincarnate theoretically in the past or future. But this time reference is sometimes fragile when you start pumping megawatts of power and actually pulse to the gigawatt region. The time of energies that will affect the psyche, mind, and spirit, you disrupt these references. 67. So what happened was the reference of the individual is disrupted, but are within the ship's field, so they are not lost. Yeah. So this is what took place in the Philadelphia experiment. Now, for the sake of time, I'm going to jump to where we want to do. So we want to understand this zero reference point or 0 point time. Now, so let's just move on to here. So I'll start with from 84. Yeah. So, and ignore some of the old terminology here, but it says 84. Your time zone is second to second, minute to minute, hour to hour, day to day. And in fact, there's a stage before that now with the hereafter information, which is moment to moment. You understand? So moment is the first point in time, understood, before the second, or we refer to it sometimes as firsts. Yeah? So first before seconds, understood. But in the time zone, which in this society, they don't obviously acknowledge first. So that's why they perceive it as second as the first point in time, because they came along second, or after us. 85. Yeah, each day of your days is 1,000 years to part Ra'eh, so Most High, probably the Ba'h Kathur the Most High would be the modern way of saying that, or the updated way of saying that, not modern, making it hard for you to understand just how Ba'h Kathur exists. 86. For the pure sound of Om, which predates the bang, is covered in the chaos of creation. You must seek this tone, Om, to realign yourself. So the vibration of the original Big Bang is what we're referencing with the Om sound, or Om sound, or Om vibration. And we have to create a new one in this day and time, which is what that tone ceremony was about, took place in about, I think it was 2015 or 14, which was to create a new Om sound based on our vibration, our configuration in this day and time. You understand? Which still really needs to be redone again, because our bodies are different to the way our ancestors were. And so that temple, when you're speaking, the sound that comes through it is obviously going to be different. Do you understand? So in order for it to have its proper effect, we have to then recreate that sound appropriate for our species, you understand, in this day and time. Now it says each individual born vibrates, has a tone within an octave. There are various octaves to complete the full scale of sound, and sound vibrates from conception to decline to end, which registers it in time. Each individual has the three things here: a zero time reference, and tone reference, and vibrational level. Yes? So zero time reference. I'm going to find out what that is in a bit. You have a tone reference, yeah, and a vibrational level. So remember that tone, or that sacred tone, remember, is your individual Big Bang, when the sperm hit the ovum. Do you understand? So that is your tone, yeah, which you should technically, you understand, which is one of the things that was through AEO, or the ancient Egyptian order, through those rituals of the ancient Egyptian order, was you being given back your tone, so you could alter your voice to speak in that tone, do your rituals in that tone, etc., for maximum results, you understand? Maximum resonance. And then we have a vibrational level, obviously, as individuals and also as a species. As I say, we're locked into a certain frequency range within certain ethers, and we look the way we look as a result of that as well. You understand? In terms of our supreme melanin. You understand? Others look differently and don't vibrate up the ether scale, so to speak, as high as we go, because we are a manifestation of light particles. It's a combination of all those colors to produce what they refer to as black light. Now, 89, you exist all in what is called set time, which exists within real time. That is each individual's real time, their point of origin. All hearts do not beat like a metronome at exact beats per second. Sound flows and is utilized, cut off and cut off. Life flows and is utilized, cut on and off. Yeah, Parker for or the Most High does not have a then, only now. Whereas each individual is at the point of now and looks back at multiple thens and looks forward at multiple thens. Thus, on both sides of present, you have past and future. Yeah, so we was explaining that earlier. Yes, within you have multiple thens, which are called then of the past, multiple thens of the future, which are called then of the future. 90, that was at the very beginning, not the beginning. 91, at the time El Waqut El Azir, it says, this is a quote from the Holy Quran, in the 13th degree, which has been changed to the 183rd degree, verses 1 through 3, pertaining to time when the inner child soul will be squeezed from his body and is overcome by death. And his squeezing of the inner sight soul, it will be squeezed from his body. Surely this is the age when the inner sights are overcome by defeat, except for those who are faithful and work to perfect their being and are advocates of patience. So this effectively is informing us, even though it's in these lesser degrees, that the fact that if one perfects their being, then they won't dissipate into nothingness, that they have worked on their inner as well as their outer self, and so that you would be strong enough, your soul, Ba'ah, the second soul, would be strong enough to, as I say, move on, understood, once the physical body or the light of life is cut off when a person stops breathing. 92, by the measurements of time when it begins and when it ends, to humans, your reference of time began at the recreation of this planet, then called Tiamat to Ki, now Earth, from Iridu. Yes, some old terms there, but Patanun, as it's called now, which is correct. So our time is based upon our planet revolving on its axis and also circulating around the sun. 93, time does not move forward, nor has it come from behind, it has always been. 94, time does not ascend upward, nor has it ascended from above. Time is 95, time is now. Now is the time. Time is. Then, now is not then. Now, here, we're going to jump down to verse 4 here. So it says, each individual conceived has a zero time reference, from the moment of inception. So, from the mental coming together, do you understand? Yes? So, your gibab, as I say, assuming Tefafnatat or Tefnut represents water and represents, when in the mental side of things, she represented receptive thinking. And her counterpart, Shuar, understand, or Shu, it represents air, represents perceptive thinking. Perceptive thinking with receptive thinking gives birth to concepts. Understood? And they gave birth to Gibab, or Sabab, understood, which is whose symbol was the goose. Understand? Some refer to it as the golden goose, a bird of two elements, air and water. So before we are conception is achieved, where the sperm hits the ovum, we are birthed mentally first. This is what it's saying here. So this is known as inception. Understood? And this is where your zero time reference comes in. So when you are now kicked into existence, or logged into existence from inception. Understood? Yes? Now, so as it explains, it's saying, in pure and holy darkness, before cause and effect, before right and wrong, good and evil, before chaos and conception, defined here as process or growth, in unpure and unholy light of this world, where there is will, good and evil things happening. The point is real time in each individual's existence. In the physical world from conception is fake time. Yes? So we have from conception, so we're logging from conception, yes, medically we're logging from conception to understand when the child is born, and that is considered fake time because you existed from inception point first, i.e. 3 months before conception, and so that bit is not being logged because it's taking place as they perceive it in the darkness, which the darkness will be visible depending on your technological ability. Understood? That's why it's dark, because it can't be seen. So as it was explained here, their inability to have merged the metaphysical with modern science means that we're ignoring what takes place before conception as part of the birthing process. Now, 6, you exist in what is called set time. You set the time from life to death. It all exists before you and will exist after you. So set time in this context can exist in 2 ways. Conception to birth, that is set time. But also from you're born to you die, this is also considered set time, at least in this society. 7, you and your life is only a point or short space in real time, which exists when the light of life, is cut on. Yes. So that burning process, because you're breathing in oxygen and you're breathing out carbon dioxide. So remember, your ancestors see birth as death. And so where we are as death, because when a person's born, they are destined to die. But yet where they are, they consider that to be living in the darkness. In a society, the Muqaddam has turned it around to place emphasis on the light, not the darkness. So if you imagine we exist in darkness, and then the fire light, the Rawuh soul, when we took our first breath, was then switched on. So that's what they're talking about, the light of life. Life is a burning process. This is why we are considered to be black, because of carbon as evidence of blackness, is evidence of burning. Now, it began in real time, yet existence already was in pure and holy darkness, and under set time in each individual's real time existence, their point of origin. it says here, their point of origin. Alien L does not have a then only now, whereas each individual is at the point of now and looks back at multiple thens, yeah, which we were just explaining. Yeah. Now, let's just go down to 14. Excuse me. Down to 14. So when beings enter into this planet, they travel interdimensionally using real time, and that's why they can pop up at any time within our zero time or fake time. Zero time, this is to answer Shep's question, zero time is the first time each individual as they come into the world while being born in real time. Do you understand? So this is zero time for us when we come into the world by being born in zero time. So we have a zero time reference, understood, and we have we have what is referred to as zero time. Do you understand? Now, if you think about this, not to confuse the issue, we did touch upon this, I think, last class. Yes, because when we think about the calendar and where the confusion comes in as well, if you think about the months of the year, yeah, it's January from day one, isn't it? So day one is as soon as it switches over, it's January. If we think about, I don't know, it's Sunday today, yeah, and when we go into what they're calling Monday, it's Monday from the start of that point, isn't it? Yes? But when you're born, there's no calculation, because if we're somebody asks you how old you are, you say, well, I'm 21, or I'm 40, or I'm 50. Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah? But the fact of the matter is, you become one at the end of the cycle, not at the beginning of the cycle. Do you understand? Yeah? So at the beginning now, okay, right, because we've not hit this first one complete cycle, according to what they are, we're referencing this as zero time. Do you understand? Because we're at the starting point of the cycle. So it's zero time now. Yet, when we think about in years, they're locking you in at the end of the first cycle, as they call it. Do you understand? Which really, the end of the first cycle, your first year was when you was born. So you're really one at the first point of birth, but we don't give it in this society, don't give it you're not one from the day you're first born. Do you understand? So that gives you an indication of how they're using a version of zero time. You understand? Because your first year, i.e. 365 days from your birthday, is, they call you, oh, well, you're 1 year old. But yet in other parts of the calendar, they're logging that one from the start of the cycle, not from the end of the cycle, like we just gave the example with months. You understand? Yeah? So zero time, as we take it back to that definition, you understand what we're looking at in partake. Yeah. So with your so fractal DNA interacts with etheric space, time, and vacuum with terms which are synonymous in this context with your zero time point of 0.0. Do you understand? So there are two things going on here. You understand? So you've got your zero time reference, and then you've got your zero time point. Now, what does that mean? Well, to get the understanding of that, we go to another part of that called the prism. You understand? And here, we go to this third one, should be, okay, right. So, without me going through the previous stuff, I will do if people want to get some better understanding. But what this is saying here, we can see that, we start from 35. In fact, we start from 36. Nagara Negroids have their own frequency signature or tone of vibration. So remember, in Holy Tablets, chapter 1, what did it say? It said, yes, that we had three things, didn't it? Yeah, if we can remember what those three things are, let's go back and show. So 88, each individual has what? A 0 time reference, a tone reference, and a vibrational level, correct? Yeah, so let's go back here again, where we were. So each Nagaru have their own frequency signature or tone of vibration. As we said, when we are placed within existence as a race, yeah, if we think about our classification as 9 ether beings, you understand, our race, or that of our own ancestry, will always be at 7 ether, 8 ether, or 9 ether ranges. So the way we vibrate on and this science of what's called Wu-Sabat is unique to us as a species, yeah, unique to us as a race. This is why we look different to others on the planet and they look different to us. So to help you understand, if you think about in your room right now, yes, your TV, the computer, your internet router, you understand? There are certain protocols in place which mean that each one then occupy a certain register within the electromagnetic frequency range so that you don't hear your radio coming through your TV. The things have unique places so that they don't interfere with each other. And it's a similar thing with natural design when you're creating races. Now, if they work with natural nature, then they're going to be working with that system. If beings choose to not work with that, then they're going to be against that system. Do you understand? So one may be considered natural because it works with the system. Something may be considered artificial because it works against the system, or they did not consult or get approval from the Natharu when they were creating this particular race or being in their image, oftentimes after their likeness. So Negroes have their own frequency signature or tone of vibration. So Nagaru Negroes are living beings, packets of quantum energy as a part of the entire all, constantly exchanging outformation to information with the inexhaustible energy of Ba'h B'ah Yaanuwn, the all expanding. 38, it is also called the 0 point field and is described as an ocean of microscopic vibration in the space or ether. 39, a huge reservoir of mental to physical energy. 40, like subatomic particles influence all particles instantaneously over time and space. Yeah. So this is a point that we were making in a separate meeting to this, but a point well made nonetheless, that each Negroid has to understand that us as a race of people are part of a network. And you as an individual, much like your router in your home, you understand, which connects you to the internet, you understand, the World Wide Web, as I refer to it as, yes? You are a portal, understood, as part of this, as I say, energy network. And so each of us must guard what we bring onto the network because we're interconnected. You understand? And I think in the emotional energy, it even articulates it differently. It says the Nagaru is analogous, like air is the carrier of sound. Yeah, so the Nagaru can be compared to, you understand, the way air is the carrier of sound. You understand? So what this is explaining is that we are a medium to carry energy throughout the multiverses. Yeah, because Ba'h B'ah Yaanuwn, as we I think dealt with in part 4, remember when you cycle through universe and get down to 9, do you understand? You get to 9, you get to multiverses. You understand? So universe, dualverse, triverse, quadverse, so on and so forth. When you get to 9, you're dealing with multiverses. You understand? And then beyond that, we get to now omniverse, which is everything. So Ba'h B'ah Yaanuwn, the all expanding, is we are exchanging, you understand, from mental to physical energy. This is our ability to do it. It's the power of Wu-Sabat, remember, the science of Wu-Sabat. Yeah, as supreme beings, this is our abilities, qualities, our talents. Yeah, which we were not informed about who and what we really are. Understood? So you within that, or your ability to exchange or utilize energy within existence, we can see is called what? A 0-point field. You understand? But your zero reference point was when you were from the point of inception. You understand? Now, when we go back to what we were reading about there in Partakianth, because we're just understanding about thing, then hopefully it should all come together and make sense. So, DNA with etheric space of time and vacuum, which is synonymous in this context with your zero time point of 0.0. So, it is expressing the fact that you have a zero time reference, understood? And you have a 0-point field, understood? Yes, which is this, your ability to exchange energy, information, understood, outformation and information, mental energy into physical energy. You understand? We have the ability to do that. And obviously here, our DNA can expand with interaction with this energy as we become or transform into supreme beings again. Understood? Yeah? We are one of the mechanisms that keeps the universe together. Do you understand? We have the ability to transform energy into what is called tachyonic energy, just like the pyramids do. Remember, the original pyramid is the human nose. It takes light energy and transforms it into tachyonic energy, the glue of the universe. But you can see here even more so now. Yeah, what does it say here? This energy interacts with your consciousness. So space, matter, and time, we know are the three things needed for existence, understood? And you see that because we were there from the very origin of existence, that we've always existed, you understand? The part of us which is here now, you understand? Which is the human body, for example, with a mind and a soul, you know, a link to the mind and our soul has that link back to the original, do you understand? And bridges the world of some things versus the world of things. You understand? And so we are part of the network, which is when we open up the glass and we say, well, I am, you understand? I am a part of all. Yeah, it has new meaning to you now. So things would not be if you were not. So, or you were, maybe it's a better way to describe it. So existence would not be if we were not here. Yeah, it wouldn't be if we were not here. That's who we are. So when the Master explained to us that we're supreme beings, it's not to trouble a person's ego or gaslight, as they say in the modern times. It's expressing who we are within existence, that we've always been here. We are, you understand, pa'ut. And part of your spiritual journey, understood, is to merge back in. Not to see yourself as individuals, to merge back in. Which is why when we look at the woman, we see those characteristics of existence within a human being, or the manifestation, let's say, of existence within the human being, in the womb. And what it produces. But, you understand, in this society, that which is sacred, we don't treat sacred. As Negroes, we don't know how to, even though we've been gifted things which are sacred, we don't know how to keep it for longevity. Our ancestors kept secrets for thousands of years. Yeah? We don't have that longevity today, or have the discipline of that longevity today. You see sacred things being just put online, on Facebook, where people signed up to keep certain things sacred and secret. You see it thrown up on the internet. Whether the organization is functioning or not functioning, you as an individual is the one, and your behavior is what keeps it sacred. How you behave is what the standards are going to be. Not how your leader behaves, how you behave. When you understand who and what we all are. Everybody's part of the network. And if I look at an individual, understood, I see the whole. Do you understand? Yeah, so you take a drop of water out of the ocean, is it not the ocean? And when you put it back into the ocean, it becomes the ocean again. When you take it out, it's still the ocean. Because the rules of all things and a thing are exactly the same. Do you understand? Yeah? So the 0 point field, understand, 0 time reference, and Holy Tablets gives us 0 time, yes, for when we came into this world, understood? Those are the 3 different things. Set time is what we, from conception to birth, but it can also be from birth to death in set time. And then from conception to death is called fake time. Do you understand? Because the real time started at your 0 time reference, which is from the point of inception. Understand? So a long way to answer that question there, because we've already got to tackle it anyway. Any questions? Okay, so it appears to be clear. If not clear, please ask some more questions. So again, giving you the references, these are things for people to go back over. Understand? For mastery, and obviously if you ask questions here, that's fine as well. Do you understand? But it's a point in saying to us that everything about what your ancestors did or our ancestors did, yeah, is aligning itself with natural nature. So if you are looking at your body, yeah, you're looking at a woman, you're looking at a man, you understand? These are the things that we at Wu-Sabat and the master teachers have been trying to get us to think in the mind of our ancestors. Put the Mukassi mind down, yeah, because we were Negro playing white man or woman. Put that down and get back into the mindset of our ancestors. Not just a thing of people tripping, I'm the incarnated elder, I'm Anu, I'm Ray, I'm this person, that person, whatever the case would be. Hey, if you are, you are. Do you understand? But people like myself and others should be holding you to task and say, well, prove it. Yeah, because we already had to deal with a Jesus, a Muhammad, a Moses, and all these different other types of characters, which we worshipped and downplayed our abilities and powers. Understood? Yeah. If you're going to serve, just serve. You don't need to serve and be appointed to be something, or you understand? Just serve the cause, serve human beings. You understand? As Muhammad Ali said, service to others is the life you pay for your rent here on earth. Do you understand? And we see that with the sun. You understand? Every day it does its job. Was it appointed? Well, yes, it was appointed to a certain thing, but obviously, until somebody told you about it, you benefited from its service before you knew about who it was. And most people, let's say, in their daily going about, don't even acknowledge the love that is displayed upon them by the sun. Understand? Which is that true, ashuk or divine love. Yeah, which without it, we wouldn't be here. Understand? Same like with the sacrifice of your parents, whether they were good or bad people, without that coming together, you would not be here, at least in the physical. So to speak. So we have to get back to acknowledging those simple realities, understood? And study of self, you understand, or the structure of the human body is one of the pathways, as I say, to truly unlock the mysteries of the universe. So let's continue. So we we're seeking to understand, as I say, the structure of why we are matriarchal. So we've got a bit of a long way around to understand that a little bit more. Now, we understand the structure of existence. I feel like I've gone through this many times, but just for the reminder, for those who may be new to the session today. So, the happens ordered. So when we think about existence, 76% dark energy, 24% dark matter, yes, which makes up 90% of existence. And then you have 10%, which is the visible universe, which makes up the whole. Do you understand? So they're not separate from each other in that regard. They are intertwined. This is the way to see it. Do you understand? But this triad principle that we see prevalent in our culture, you see it exist in existence. You understand? You look at your hand, for example, you can see the finger is separated into 3 segments. If you look at your arm and stretch it out while you're in this call at the moment, you see your hand, your forearm, and your bicep. It's in a triad principle. You think about your body, head, torso, do you understand, area, legs. Think about your feet, or your legs, excuse me, feet, shin, do you understand? And then you've got your thigh area. So this design is sitting there, do you understand, for us as Nagaru, the children of the Natharu, to observe, pay attention, and contemplate, obviously, our higher existence, because the signs and evidence of our Natharu, they have place within the environment that we are a part of. Do you understand? And numerology is also one of our sciences as Negroids and Nagaru. Yeah. Now, let's step through this because we're not going to cover everything to do with this. Yeah, but now, the point is with the sacred feminine or the female, and we have covered this a lot of times before, but I'm going to go over it because it might not be clear to everybody. Before you get energy, yeah, so maybe look at this slide for a second. So energy, what we call energy, and then it transforms itself into matter. You understand? And those lines between what one is and what one is not become blurred depending on your technological abilities. Do you understand? So dark matter, for example, is dark because scientists of today can't see it. You understand? So that's why they call it dark. But they know something's there. Yes? So that's why it's called dark. But obviously, if you've got mechanisms to perceive it, then it's not dark matter to you, it's just going to be matter. Do you understand? Yes? But for the purposes of our understanding here, there is a distinction between pre-hydrogen and hydrogen. Do you understand? So hydrogen, as the first point of the 99 elements, we refer to that as something. Yes. For those new here, let me just put that on the screen. Send that. Okay, bear with me 1 second. Okay, not working for the moment. But basically, let me see if I can, let's type it instead. So we see So obviously something is not something SOM, but it's something versus no thing. Correct? So our light world is here in the world of something, and then you've got the world of things. So our origin is from the world of things. You understand? So this is considered to be illusionary, and this is the real, so to speak. Do you understand? The world of things, where we come from, and the rules of nature or natural nature govern the rules of things as well, which is part of existence. Yeah. So space is not empty for this reason. Now, before energy, we have energy. Now, energy is associated with motion, movement, work. Yes? And so the reason why we have a hard time conceiving of this concept, which is introduced to us by the master in the book Emotional Energy, is because it doesn't have any motion, or neither does it impart any force. Understood. Let me just move the slide back. So here, now, depending on your perception of the situation and where your viewpoint is, this affects what you're looking at. Do you understand? And so you have to understand, certain times we're looking at the same thing from a certain perspective. So if somebody showed you the Orion star constellation, for example, you would draw it with, sort of 4 stars in each corner, and then you draw Orion's belt with 3 stars across the middle. Now, that's how it looks from somebody looking at the Earth, looking upwards. But obviously, if you get further towards it, you're not going to see all that. You're going to see millions of different stars, planets, etc., etc. It's not going to look like how it looks from Earth's perspective. And so when you think about, even when we're looking at existence, for example, from our perspective, remember, because matter is vibrating on a certain frequency within the physical world, you understand, called mutation, then our perception of the world around us is based on how our senses are wired in to this environment. Do you understand? And for us to understand maybe a bit better is how you're looking at these pixels. So it looks like a curved line, but in actuality it's made up of squares, isn't it, from a certain perspective? Once you zoom in, you understand further, the issue is that it's difficult to zoom in on life using your own senses. You understand? You can zoom, but you're not necessarily going to look at detail and the makeup of things. You have to be kind of looking at it from a certain perspective, or in a lot of instances, we have to use equipment, you understand, in order to get that perspective. But in our esoteric side of ourselves, when we start to merge in, or we're able to express ourselves from the different aspects of self, then we would have a better understanding or awareness of what makes up existence. So, for example, on the physical plane, for example, you're using your physical eyes to see. But when somebody's existed on the spiritual plane, they don't use their eyes to see, their whole body sees. Do you understand? So we're made up of different bodies or aspects of self, for example. But what we haven't able to do is move between the different ones in order to analyze, I may say, or to be aware of, or to experience these finer or types of energies within existence. Now, why is this relevant? So it's relevant because of this thing called basic energy. Now, when we look at, we've just put up here different definitions so we to understand what it is in terms of base. So base or one of the meanings of the word base, isn't it, is foundation, correct? Yeah, so basic, yeah, is relating to base, foundation. What's one of the definitions of, when we say the Wu-Sabat, we say sound, right reasoning. Sound relates to what a person receives from space and beyond, which is one of our definitions. But also sound can mean like foundation, isn't it? Sound, solid foundation. Understand the word sound. So this is showing us that sound right reasoning, or when we talk about the science of Wu-Sabat, which is feminine in origin, do you understand? It's dealing with the base, the basic, understood, the foundation of where growth and things can then arise. Understood? Now, let's look at the definition of basic energy. All these references here on this page are from Actual Fact 17, emotional energy. Yeah. Now, it says here, 26, you have a hard time trying to conceive of basic energy with the same overstanding associated with energy, because the basic type has not motion and cannot impart force. All things which would be opposite to what we know as energy. You understand? Motion, movement, work. Yes? Now this doesn't. What does it say? 27. It is quiescent, passive, and insusceptible. It is the Mu'at, mother of energy and matter. It is that from which all things are created. Yes? All things are created from basic energy. 28. She is revealed to you by the evidence existing in the wave phenomena of the propagation of Nawura light and the three moods of vibrations of the three colors, blue, yellow, and red, which birth all others. By this we know she is Pa'ut, the existence. So, 29, the basic energy or achach, ether, imposes a limit on the speed of Nawura light. 30, and it's all within dark matter, so space is not empty. So here we see that, well, okay, we know that something's there because what we're calling light, when you talk about light, you're talking about particles moving in darkness. And the three natural colors are blue, yellow, and red, primary colors, correct? And so blue is the fastest, red is the slowest, and then obviously we have all these different variations of color in between. So you're talking about particles moving in darkness. And as we've expressed before, the fact that they move in waves, so energy generally moves in straight lines, but the fact that it moves in waves is because something is there which is causing those particles to vibrate. You understand? And I think we've explained it before, as if you think about when you're driving a car and you drive across a smooth surface, you won't really feel, you understand, that through the steering wheel. But you're moving in a straight line, as straight as it can be, or horizontal line. But if you go over a surface that has rivets or bumps or whatever the case may be, you're going to feel that through the steering wheel, aren't you? Do you understand? So, and you'll feel it in the car. Do you understand? Hey, we've gone over something that's not smooth. Yeah. And so if you imagine now, the fact that light is moving, or these particles are moving in waves, this is what it's saying. There's evidence that there's something there, that these particles that should be moving in a straight line are interacting with something that's now causing them to vibrate. You understand? The second thing is that the mother of energy, or this basic energy, imposes a speed limit on light, which is 186,272 miles per second in a vacuum. So this is showing you that something is there, which, as we've explained previously in the early parts of this, people don't give it credit. They don't pay enough attention. They don't give credit to existence. The same way they don't give credit to the woman. This is what the patriarchal society did, isn't it? It wrote her out of existence. in these translations. Noah didn't beget anybody. That's a lie. That's one simple observation to dash all the books in the bin. Isn't it? Noah didn't beget anybody. How? According to nature's rules. But women have allowed themselves to believe in these stories, allowed themselves and given their power over, ignoring, especially if they have children, ignoring the actual facts of who they are for the imagination of some Mukasu translators. You understand? And the works of the Anunnaki. You understand? And their patriarchal system, the Pleiadians and the books that they created to control their children. But the reality of your existence, understood, is what is factual, not what was imparted upon us in those religious degrees and books. So the hidden knowledge is shown here that from a basic level, all energy is birthed from basic energy. And it is the mother of energy, the M-other of energy, not the father, the M-other of energy. It gives birth to energy. Stillness, or motion, out of stillness. Yeah? So here, so dark matter or Papa or just is, was, and will be. Dark matter is stationary. Within it is the movement of things, all things. Within it, light is shaped, light bends and moves. It is called the unseen, yet existence. Dark matter does not push or pull. Neutrinos, neutrino, not nu, only exist in dark matter. Dark matter is nothingness. That is the sum of all. Everything does not have to be something because a thing must come forth of nothing. So you understand this now, that the world of things is birthed out of basic energy. Do you understand? And forms nothingness. You understand? Which is the sum of all. Yeah, so all of it together is the sum of all. Yeah, it's that which adds up to its calculation. Yes, because in some things, the reason why something's called nothing is because it didn't sum up to something that can be weighed. Do you understand? But the first sum they call hydrogen. But what we see now as we break down what were called elements but are not really, do you understand? Because they break down into smaller particles called quantum. Understood? Yes, this is the world of things. So if you imagine, we were what? What have we been doing? We've been ignoring, through ignorance, it is ignorance, we've been ignoring all of this. 90% of existence we have ignored and even continue to ignore. Now, by anybody's calculation, 90% is majority. It's not a minority. Yeah, so we have been ignoring this. We've been ignorant of it. And this is who have we been ignorant of? That's manifested itself as being ignorant of the power of the sacred feminine. Now, she was put in the back in the wrong way. Because obviously in the back is foundation. In the back is sound. In the back is existence. And you know your life has its place within darkness. That's what it says. Remember, in the old tablets, the light of life was cut on in darkness. Yeah, if you imagine this class now that we've been teaching the last few hours, and you go on and you switch on the light switch, you understand? That is the point of life. And you switch it on, you understand? Then that life is cut off as the burning process. But existence always has been it. It always is. It's always been where things are birthed from. Do you understand? And the manifestation of that power for us to see is obviously the woman, in the sense, or the physical woman as we see, the structure of the woman, etc., is the manifestation of that power as we see it here in the physical from a certain perspective. Do you understand? Yeah, because we're looking at the peacock in the light, in the world of light. We're looking at the woman, but we're not seeing, the pixels. And then we step further, the zeros and ones, and we step further back. You understand? But it's the same thing that we're seeing. But as we step back with this knowledge from perspectives, obviously it's opening one up to see what things really are. Yeah, because you're being walked back as an ontologist back to the very origin of things. So you cannot really and truly understand that journey, you understand, if you don't follow the trail of the matriarch. Because that's how existence has been set up. Does that make sense? Any questions? Okay, let's see. Yeah. Okay, no questions for the moment. So don't get caught up. I see other people say, the secret goddess and blah, 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 and all these different type of people jumping on the bandwagon and not giving credit to the true liberator of women. What it's showing you is that pathway of studying who we are and understanding, remember, know thyself is not just, it's not a black history statement. Do you understand? Know thyself is understanding or studying the body and the makeup of it, because it's giving you insight to how a universe is structured, how multiverses are structured, how the omniverse is structured. Do you understand? Because we are all as being things. Understand? That's who we are. Understood? Yeah? Okay, right. So let's, what time is now? Let's keep it moving to the next bit. Okay, so you got a reasonable understanding of why matriarchal, because everything we did was aligning with natural nature. But when we look at the Bible story, for example, Genesis chapter 3, what we see is what we were talking about earlier, this suppression, because the Anunnaki, who are responsible, with the plebeians for the creation of the Adamite race, which is the version of the white race, and the Mukasu, and the books that basically tell his story, within that Genesis chapter 3, you can see there it has a hidden meaning. So there's no proof that these stories, as they have given them to you, took place, but there is symbolism within there which talks about, as we touched upon earlier, the suppression of the woman experiencing sexual pleasure, you understand? And therefore highlighting or growing her esoteric or her spiritual powers as a result. So let's step into this Genesis chapter 3 story. So, as it's given to us in Lotus of Life. So it says, Genesis chapter 1, verse 27. So God created man, a male, in a male own image, in the image of God, a male. Created he a male and female, created he a male, then. So, as is expressed here, so the God of the Bible and Quran is a he, him, male, masculine, being as his angels and the serpent of Genesis 3:1 and 3:24 with an XY chromosome, 46 in all, as other human males. So, again, if man is in the image and after likeness of God, and he's in the image of, then God, what is God? Because if God is a male, then we have a problem, because the Y chromosome, understood, that Y chromosome is less 2.8% less genetic material than the X chromosome. It's actually 5 times smaller in size than the X chromosome. It is a defective X chromosome. So the woman who is greater as the double X chromosome, you understand the X is the superior chromosome, maybe why they have that series called the X-Men, you understand? Because X is a superior, the X or the mutant gene, as they refer to as, is the superior gene, you understand, chromosome. So therefore, how does the male of God give birth to a defective chromosome? God is defective. The Y chromosome in this context is defective. Now, it doesn't say that God is neutral gender here, you understand? Because it's using the term he, not they, you understand? Or it, maybe more neutral, you understand? So it's making the man superior, and then in the story at least, the male gives birth to the female, you understand? But when we study out the rules of nature, we can all see them in studying genes and genetics. This doesn't make sense. Now, Genesis 3:1. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And he said unto the woman, Yea, hath God said, Ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden. Genesis 3:24. So he drove out the man, he placed him east of the Garden of Eden, cherubims and a flaming sword, which turned every way to keep the way of the tree of life. So in the story, the serpent got into the garden. How? But the serpent got into the garden. And the serpent had the conversation with the woman, you understand, and convinced her to basically partake of the fruit of this tree in the garden, which the Lord God has instructed Adam, who had then informed Eve, the woman, not to partake of this fruit. And obviously the serpent comes along and says, no, listen, yeah, God knows, but if they ate of the tree, if they ate of the fruit of the tree, they were to die instantly. This is what the Lord God had told Adam, who had told his wife. Understood? But in this thing, the serpents come along and said, hey, no, that's not true. God knows that the day that you eat of this fruit, you understand, you will be as gods, knowing good from evil. Yeah, so there's a conflict there in what they were being told. But the point is that the focus is on the woman, it's not on the male. Genesis chapter 15, actually 2:15-16. So the Lord God took man and put him in the Garden of Eden to dress it and to keep it. And the Lord God commanded the man, saying, of every tree of the garden thou mayest freely eat. You understand? So again, we're cutting down this because of our time, but if you want more detail, you can go to the book. But what it is, as we expressed earlier, God told the man, he didn't speak to the woman directly, he told the man, yeah, Adam, as they translate it as, I believe untranslated, Adam, and Adam was to inform, obviously, his woman or wife in the context of Eve. So it said, and this male God, Genesis 2:15-17, the male God took the male being and put him into the Garden of Eden. And this male God commanded the man, not the woman, so he told the male of every tree of the garden, you can consume freely. Yes? But the woman took the blame. Genesis 3:25. For God doth know, as we just explained earlier, that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, ye shall be as gods. Elohim, same word. This is in Genesis 1:1. Excuse me. Yet knowing good and evil. So the man was allowed access to this garden's offerings, yet not the full rahuh, knowledge. Don't consume this or it will kill you. So this male God is not warning the female, he's only warning the male who is like himself, has a penis, a tree like him. Okay. Yeah. So it brings a little bit of different meaning to what we're reading about there and what was taking place in the garden. Let's continue. Yes? So yet later on, another being, the serpent, symbolic of a snake or erected penis, Genesis 3:1, he did not go to the male. He went to the female and said, this male God does not want you, the female, to experience all that he and his male creature can by way of their male penis ejaculation. Do you understand? Now, if you think they're talking about a talking snake, then that is your business. But snakes do not have a larynx and they don't have a voice box to speak. Understood? So, and a woman, let's be honest, if she saw a talking snake, certainly a black woman, if she saw a talking snake, she's going to run and scream. You understand? However, if she saw a nice male, dark-skinned male with a six-pack, boom, 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 in the garden, then, you understand, and her husband's not around, she may have a conversation. Not to say all women would do that, but they're going to have a conversation. You understand? And be an interesting conversation as opposed to a talking snake. Yes? So the word devil is not used here to describe this individual. The word serpent is the word nachash in Hebrew, and it actually means to whisper. And all to whisper denotes a certain level of intelligence. Understood? You understand? So symbolic of a snake, erected penis. Yeah. So there's a science in the science of sex referred to as snake love. You understand? Which obviously is the penis or the phallus. Remember, is a delivery device. In Holy Tablets in the 5th chapter, it explains to you that how we make love today and produce children as male and female, remember, is a form of artificial insemination. So today you describe artificial insemination as somebody in a lab, you understand, mixing the sperm and ovum together within a test tube. Yes, but you have to realize that Atharu, with the level of technology that they're dealing with, they took the male principle out of the woman and they put it in a being called the male. Understood? So when the sperm and the ovum come together, remember the sperm is being delivered through the woman, if they're producing a male child at least, through this delivery mechanism. You understand? It's a technological piece. Understood? And it's a delivery device inserted into the woman. And remember, as you know, this starts this internal war within the female, isn't it? Because the sperm are not part of her own immune system. And so she has to formulate a sac, in the amniotic sac, to protect the baby, obviously once the egg is fertilized, from her own immune system. So this is this internal war that takes place. Do you understand? So here we see that the tree is symbolic of, you understand, the male sexual organ, and the serpent obviously also represents that. You understand? Now, so Genesis 3:25, we know this, that God lied in the chapter, insofar as they didn't die when they ate this fruit or partook of this fruit, but their eyes were open and then they should be as gods. So here, the explanation that God knows that or has the knowledge of power of full pleasure and satisfaction. So he knows once the female also has her ejaculation, Genesis 3:25, for this male God knows that in that day, you female consume of it, your female eyes will be opened and you female will be as the male's gods. So the power of ejaculation or experiencing an orgasm, understand, is open up the mind. Now, we've said it before, but the male stereotype, isn't it, that we see is that the male ejaculates and immediately falls to sleep, woman sitting there unsatisfied or lying there unsatisfied, maybe in some instances. But the reality is that in both instances, when the female has her orgasm, actually when the male has her orgasm, it opens you up, isn't it, to the wider, you're at one with the universe. Now, the reason why we have to deploy good hygiene and things of that nature is because there are forces waiting there to take advantage of our openness, because we're quite vulnerable in this situation. Do you understand? So you want to make sure that adverse forces who want to feed off of our sexual energy, our spiritual energy, as it's got, whereas we're in this kind of open state, that we stay protected, which is why you don't have sex when you're sick, you understand, and your immune system and usual systems of protection are compromised, or in situations where we're not clean. Do you understand? Because it invites, has the potential, I should say, to invite forces that we would not want in that situation. Lower forces that want to feed off of this expression of energy in this regard. So we're supposed to be open. And so if the male stays awake, not falls for this stereotype, you understand? That orgasm opens you up. There's certain knowledge that you may experience or inhale, certain questions that might have been bugging you, which now, boom, you receive the answers for. Do you understand? So it opens us up to be at one with the universe as both esoteric and physical beings. You understand? So the suppression of the ability for the woman to express herself through having an orgasm limits her spiritual powers and keeps her, as say, subservient in this context to males. So the male serpent taught her, and she experiences her female ejaculation as the male gods. They call it the first sin. And in religion of the Bible and Quran, kept this female ejaculation a secret to this day, and cover up the beauties of their female's body as to not be sexually attractive to their male gods, who in Genesis 6:1-5 rape them. So today, most Ashar female don't know she's supposed to experience Ashar female ejaculation, just as the male complete pleasures and bliss, delight of erotic fulfillment. Once the female experiences her ejaculation, she's never the same afterwards. Her eyes open, and from then on are opened. She is a sexual goddess, as she was born to be the sex goddess. You understand? So here we see what we represent in terms of that kind of coming together and full expression within natural nature, which sex obviously is a natural part of what we do. The issue is with the lack of knowledge, excuse me, and oftentimes what is being taught today is the darker side, a more unnatural side through porn and other different, permutations of that, of, the kind of sexual process. And as I say, in the image and after the likeness of Adamu, who struggle, the male struggle to raise the apron, struggle to get that erection, do you understand? Then the problem is that they're doing weird and wonderful things to get that erection, maybe an unwonderful, not wonderful, maybe unwonderful, that's a word, you understand? But to get that erection, which is going down the route of perversion. Do you understand? As opposed to, you understand, being satisfied with that form of the female to be enough to make the kadub or the penis erect or hard for sexual fulfillment. Now, people like what they like. You understand? There's no judgment as to what takes place in the bedroom. But as we made the emphasis before in the earlier parts of this, if you're going to indulge in something where a woman, I don't know, is going to be, you're going to choke a person, for example, 1 degree the wrong way, the person's going to end up dead. So the reality is that really a form of pleasure that you want to indulge in somebody you're saying you love? You understand? It should be pleasure, not pain. You understand? So the natural things that one should be doing should not have to result in somebody losing their life because there's too much expression in a certain direction on route. I hope people understand or trust they understand what I'm saying in this regard. You understand? So the 9 direction is maximum pleasure, least adverse results. You understand? it doesn't mean violence. You understand? Or things countermount to violence. And so we must unlearn some of the ways that we have picked up, you understand, and realize, understood, technique, brings pleasure, you understand, not necessarily harder or more violent actions in that regard, or uncontrolled actions. Technique, skill, you understand, care is what's going to yield these results in that regard. So, let me just say, I think someone's asking a question. Is that why some African cultures perform female? Question from Hatshepsut. Is that why some African cultures perform female genital mutilation, keeping from her divine orgasm? Well, this is exactly that. It's not just Africans. It's world over, unfortunately, but yes, certainly prevalent there. It's a good question, because they didn't want their woman to experience this, and this comes from, as I say, these what we're reading about there in Genesis, a revisit of Genesis chapter 3, Genesis per se, you understand, as the patriarchal thinking, do you understand, which obviously we explained earlier, led to this covering up, putting women in the back, and even as in these translations, there's no even acknowledgement really of her existence, because Genesis is supposed to be a keeping of the records of the various different people to follow the lineage all the way from Adam and get down to New Testament, excuse me, from Adam to Jesus. But it doesn't give you any of the female names. So this is already telling you that there's irreality in there, as well as suppression. And as we can see there, female expression of pleasure is muted in these religions. And so it's almost seen as something negative or dirty, do you understand, in that regard. Now, in basis of you asking your question, we can see Genesis 24:65, for she said unto the servant, what man is this that walketh in the field to meet us? And the servant had said, it is my master. Therefore she took a veil to cover herself. So as we can see throughout these monotheistic cultural expressions that have invaded many places around the world, in particularly Africa, understood, and you compare, as I say, the Sands people and how they live to the version that you're seeing, for example, in many places where there's been an invasion, particularly of Islam and other religions, have brought in, ways to deal with male lust. When actuality, our true clothes, isn't it, in those optimal environments is our human body, our skin. Our skin is our first line of defense of our immune system, and it is also our clothing against the elements. You understand? Naturally, if our body was out, then we would be able to maximize, isn't it, absorption from the sun rays and energy that we're receiving from the sun. But we have to cover up ourselves because of lust, or certainly in that regard, because of what we've been taught and conditioned. And we can see here that, interpretations of that book or liberty by that book is, suppressing women all over the world. I mean, that basically those religions deal with suppression of the female, but yet we are putting our emotional energy in keeping these old religions alive, as if it's the basis of some kind of truth. Now, Quran 24:31 says, and to say the believing woman that they should lower their gaze and guard their modesty, that they should not display their beauty and ornaments except what must ordinarily appear thereof, that they should draw their veils over their bosoms and not display their beauty except to their husbands, their fathers, their husbands' fathers, their sons, their husbands' sons, their brothers or their brothers' sons or their sisters' sons, or their women, or the slaves whom their right hands possess, or male servants free of physical needs, or small children who have no sense of shame of sex, and that they should not strike their feet in order to draw attention to their hidden ornaments. O ye believers, turn ye all together towards Allah, that he may attain bliss. Excuse me. So this is what, as you can see here, well, who made the woman beautiful? Yeah, who made the woman attractive? Do you understand? So part of the coming together that we see in the natural order of things, yeah, in terms of these powers, they're part of the natural force of nature. Do you understand? Magnetism, force of attraction. It's part of the natural forces. Yeah, that opposites are going to attract in that regard and be brought together for their propagation and production of life. Understood? So it shouldn't be something unnatural. But what's happened is as I say, the insecurities, you understand, have been formulated into the actual rules to deal with, as I say, how lust is managed. And this is for the woman to suppress herself, not for the man to control his own sexual desires. And religions have pandered to this, and as I say, made it for a male-dominated world, which is anti-nature or anti-natural nature. So we can see here that basically this is quite a very heinous act, but you can see here they remove different types of genital mutilation in its extremes, isn't it? In a sense, so the removal of labis major or labis minora, so the lips, removal of the clitoris, do you understand? Or both in this instance, removal of clitoris here, removal of clitoris, and sort of internal genital lips, labis minora, labis majora, labis minora, and the clitoris. And here the extreme is to, tie up the actual genital hole in full, do you understand? And stitch it up. So all mutilation is the proper word, but maybe doesn't convey the extreme behaviour of this, which is taking place, as I say, in many parts around the planet. So I think that's Hatshepsut in our question explained. We can see here that in certain parts of Africa, yes, that this has been permeated. So and this is how you have to understand why, and this is quite an old diagram, maybe some newer ones around the place. However, you can see here in the red areas, more than half the women have had their genitalia cut. And in the West, however, you see none of that taking place. So when you understand how certain rules are put in place, remember, in order to propagate this new being that they'd created, yes, the new being that they created, the Pleiadians, remember, they gave the males small genitalia and gave the females large genitalia, so deep vaginas, understood, but then gave the males small penises, yes, by design, so that the woman would then seek out males who had stronger genes in order then to propagate their race. Do you understand? By design. So it's interesting that there's a loosening here in these areas, but then in Africa, in certain places where the genes are clearly stronger, for these women, that they don't want them to experience this orgasm. So they're cutting off the transformation of these sacred feminine, because if they cannot have an orgasm, then there's certain part of obviously their spiritual development that is then defunct, and obviously means that they have to then be, as I say, reborn, reborn again to experience another lifetime to achieve that, and hopefully not have the same experience in another lifetime in order to experience an orgasm. So you can see here religious ignorance propagated here in certain parts of the planet where, as I say, it's female. This has been brought in, you understand, by these religions and cultures and so on and so forth, particularly in these regions in the middle part of Africa, right by the equator. So, as it's expressed in here, so 501, excuse me. So many Zazatu women have passed in our race who, because of religious spell of Leviathan, of the Bible and the Quran, were never made a full, complete feminine and would have to return to another physical life or reincarnate again and again until she is perfected as the mother goddess, the complete divine being, and ejaculate, part of being complete. 502. If you vanas tasu, feminine, will continue to allow the unknowing masculine, will only seek his pleasures and neglect your inner desires and outer needs. 503. This is what he has been taught by the laws of Leviathan and its religion and new cultures. He does not know any better. So we can see here that it says what's being expressed here, that the male, if you allow him to do so, is going to become a dumping ground for his expression of his pleasures and not creating or not satisfying the sacred feminized desires and needs. Understood? Yeah? And will abuse the woman in that regard. You understand? And this is the problem that, as I say, as an individual, that behavior, may gain a certain respect in this society. Understood? But as a race, it's detrimental. Do you understand? Because you are misusing or wearing out, if you haven't got right intentions, by these sacred feminine as males. And as I say, you are weakening the royal genes. You're weakening the royal seed. You understand? Which is obviously going to make it more difficult for us as a race to produce supreme beings. You understand? Which is what us as star children, male and female coming together, is supposed to produce, star children. Understood? That's the ultimate, supreme being, star children. Not anything less than that. Yeah, because our race is supposed to be elevated, not, you understand, salivating to the point of self-destruction. So, 504, if you, sacred feminine, continue to allow unknowing masculine will seek his pleasures and neglect your physical anatomy or hygiene, and this is very important to the male who lives by sight and sound. We talked about the maintaining of the Zahar, flower. Then sit with him, 505, sit with him and ask why this, why that, and what can be done to improve the relationship or move on to a sexual partner who will have general sex to satisfy your desires and needs satisfactorily. So we understand that choosing the right partner is key to your transformation, but on both sides, because the male needs the right woman in order to transform him, because nature transforms the woman first, because she still has a menstrual cycle, a lunar astrology, lunar astronomy, or lunar biology, lunar biology. She's still tied into the phase of the moon. So when nature transforms, she transforms. But then women, you see also that for your own purposes, if you're having male to female relations, then you need a man to do the right thing and be trained, if not or shown, if you don't understand yourself, or to be skilled in that regard to ensure that you experience an orgasm, a true orgasm, you understand, to become complete as a woman. So here you see the steps on the screen. satisfy female drive, preparation, touch, location, stopping. So what that basically means there is sometimes in the sexual process, the woman, let's say, feels absolutely amazing, and it may cause the man to ejaculate quicker. So in order to prolong the sexual process, both need to work together. So they need to stop, take some time, let the man regain his composure, and then continue again. You understand? And then 6, divine intercourse. So I'm going to touch upon this previously, which is why in terms of males, yes, and females, but males, particularly when you're indulging sexual process, sometimes, deep frosting or violent frosting, it's not really maybe the way to go, because you're not going to basically be paying attention to the changes that are taking place in the clitoris, the labis minora, labis majora, understood, and then we say the engaging, certainly in the top part of the vaginal wall, in the Grafenberg spot area, to understand, as I say, that what you're doing is working. Do you understand? And then also, I suppose, for women to understand to some degree, like what works, being able to express yourself, being comfortable enough for a partner to be able to express that, to be able to direct the person or whatever to the right spots. And if that itself is considered to be a turn on for you, understand? But knowledge, I suppose, experience in this regard is better than not having it. You understand? So things you must know: relaxation, 1, 2, communication, 3, arousal, 4, attraction, 5, mood, 6, lubrication. Having an empty bladder is key to support female ejaculation. I suppose for males, it can cause individuals to ejaculate faster. So you want an empty bladder, probably in that regard. Patience, you understand? And 9, dropping of expectation, which is probably a difficult one for this generation, because people are watching all kinds of nonsense, and then expecting, that's going to be the case when they get with a woman or a partner. And people in this society, because of the technology now used around attaining certain relationships, it's easy to disregard. Yeah, very easy to disregard people, not work together on things, etc. And so this is a very dangerous time, really, to protect the lineage, the genes, so on and so forth. Yeah, very difficult time to do that. So, and obviously we're going to sit that out, since people are bowing out a little bit. So let me just finish off on a logical point. So the important thing is that you understand that this reality, basically your lineage or your soul seed, our story, is contained, as say, the importance of this chart, which many will be familiar with, that you are made up of 30 individuals. Understand? Excuse me. 30 individuals of 4 generations. So when a person exchanges fluids, i.e. what they call the genetic kiss, coined by the master genetic kiss, that you are intermingling these 30. So if you kiss somebody and you don't intend to take on board all of the genetic positives and disadvantages of taking on all of their ancestry, don't kiss a person where you're exchanging fluids. Fluids, doesn't matter if you wear a condom or not. Once you exchange fluids, you are taking on board the 30 personalities, and all of their then interactions with their 30 at the time of conception. And this is causing confusion. So the reason why women, I suppose, can't just go out there and sleep with however many men as their desires and appetites meet is because, basically, remember, when a person is not in control of their thinking, understood, you lose your soul. So if a person, for example, is addicted to crack cocaine and their decision-making now is not really their own. It's been informed by their addiction to crack cocaine. Then you lose your soul. You lose your connection. Yeah? Taking in too much male DNA, understood? Remember, it takes up to 9 years to naturally for the body to remove foreign DNA out of the system. So remember, the sacred feminine has been optimized to produce life. Yeah, and even when we see even in unnatural circumstances where we probably wouldn't want life to be produced, the rules are the rules, aren't they? So like rape and things of that nature, you understand? If the rules are satisfied, life is going to be produced. So the woman is optimized to produce life. You understand? So as a consequence of that, the womb is set, remember, to remember the genes and foster those and promote it and in order to produce life in an optimum way. So when you start taking more DNA, the issue is that you get conflicts at a cellular level that would potentially manifest themselves at the physical level, the highest level that we're at, where we're interacting with each other. So, for example, when you may engage in let's say a woman engages in a new relationship, yeah, and she's been in a previous relationship to that one, what can happen is that as she's trying to formulate the relationship with the new partner, for example, or mate, the old boyfriend is still in there. So the thought, if the person doesn't understand who's at the top of the pyramid, that all thoughts that she's receiving in her head are not her own, understand, and that they can be the expressions from the desires of the individuals that within her bloodstream and formulate her makeup in terms of her DNA, then she might realize that basically her old boyfriend's gene, or boyfriend, or old mate's genes or partner's genes are still in her system. And so that being, because of jealousy, is going to try and basically disrupt the new relationship with the new man that she's formulating in a new relationship, because the genes are still there. You understand? Now, if she internalizes and takes on board those thoughts as her own and doesn't understand, hey, this might be her own thoughts, but if it's not, then it might be the expression of that old boyfriend, then that could disrupt the new relationship. You understand? The two, if she then brings in these secondary genes, the two males now are going to be in conflict with each other inside her own internal body. And if it could be that the sperm or the semen or the male's DNA is not compatible with her own DNA, which can cause health issues. But now you bring in two parties together, now those two could be in conflict with each other inside the woman's body, which will manifest itself in health issues, fibroids, different types of things inside the woman's body. So the reason why we would be moving in a manner, certainly, look, we've lived life here in the Western Hemisphere. Many people, and let's say we've made decisions that we're not proud of, or we made decisions out of ignorance. You understand? So obviously, as we're moving now, we're seeking to move in the other direction to clean ourselves up. Mistakes may be made, whatever. But we're seeking to move in a direction that, if not our generation and future generations, if we establish the culture correctly, will be, when we say purer, we say that in a context of not to judge the sexual process, but to understand, well, actually, this is the way we need to move in order to produce optimum children. Do you understand? So it doesn't mean you're not going to be attracted to many men or whatever, vice versa. Some people are not, some people are. But we make sacrifices to optimize, yes, to produce the best children, produce the best liberty, to make sure we don't denigrate ourselves and our own supremeness, do you understand, in terms of our own growth journey or ascension pathway. Understood? So what happens is the same. For many different reasons, even when you're seeing, for example, women may be attracted to other women, if it's not a fact that a person's born a lesbian, it could be that too much male DNA inside the woman. It's the male expression of the desire for the female that can lead to a same-sex situation when the woman herself is not gay or not lesbian. If you're born that way, you're born that way. It is what it is. It's fine. But too much male DNA means that it's male internal expression that is attracted to the female that can draw the individual into a same-sex situation when they were not born that way. So us understanding the real power in our genetics and genes and the confusion that arises from intermixing, unintended consequences, we may call them, because of our spiritual ignorance, is the reason why women shouldn't go out there and have multiple partners. It's not an equality situation. It's an understanding of who the woman is. The same way males can't go around or shouldn't be going around having sex with one woman, boom, then taking that DNA of that woman and then dumping it in another female who he's having sex with because they haven't left a sufficient amount of time. So now you've caused genetic confusion because now that woman who you said was your partner, if you stepped out and you slept with some other woman who's not, one of the reasons why internally she's got a feeling of something's not right, something's going on, is because you put the woman the second woman, who she wasn't aware of, in your main woman, if you want to call it that, genes. And now internally she's got that feeling because literally you've put the genes of the other women inside her. Do you understand? So this misuse of the sexual power is what is causing problems. It's not to say that we shouldn't be experiencing pleasure through the sexual process. We should be maximizing that, having fun, etc., but it has to be controlled with consequence. So it must be treated with care if that's not the intention. And so sex can be a very selfish act. Selfish, individual fish. Us not thinking about the whole or the body. Do you understand? Or even the person's own ascension journey. If we're really looking out for each other, isn't it? Because I should see, when I look at you, I should see me. You look at me, I should see you. We should both want everybody to ascend who has the ability to do so. That's their genetic right, if that's who they are. Do you understand? Especially of our race, we want all to ascend if they're worthy to do so. So this is where the knowledge comes in, and I say maybe the discipline comes in about how we use these powers, maybe more caring, less selfish, easy to say, harder to execute or do, you understand, in that regard. And so, but it comes from an understanding of the importance of what we're seeing here in terms of understanding who we are, the reality of who we are, accepting that reality, and then moving accordingly. Yeah, because a lot of us as Nagaru are out here mashing up people's lives. Yeah, for our own selfish lust and wants and needs or whatever. And the woman, unfortunately, as the foundation, is the one who oftentimes has to bear, all of these issues and problems in relation to that. Do you understand? 7 years or up to 9 years is a long time to get a being out of your system. Do you understand? So up to 4 men really can cause genetic confusion and the person loses their soul. Yeah, because the thoughts then potentially are not the person's own. They're not in control. Do you understand? These combination of these DNAs, if they've all been done in relatively close proximity to each other, hasn't allowed enough time for the body then to remove certain foreign DNA out of the system. So it doesn't lend itself to what these, these new body counts I'm hearing of 10, 20, 30, whatever the case may be, excuse me, in that regard. Do you understand? So if it's just to do what you want, society and mentality, cool. If it's a case of us wanting to produce supreme beings, then in a very difficult sense, this is why you need your own environments, your own rules, your own culture, because there's a different agenda going on as it pertains to their women. Yeah? Remember, their deities designed it that way so that they would bring in more stronger DNA to progress their race. When you understand that, you understand why there needs to be a clear alternative between the 6 or ghost-stational ether versus the 9 ether that we are a part of. Any questions? Okay. Let's see any hands raised, I think. You understand? So that makes it kind of clear about our story, you understand? And your story and how, well, I say your story because really we all have to have regard to that if it's going to work, isn't it? Yeah, it's not that a person can't have multiple partners if that's what they choose to do, but it has to be in a controlled manner, isn't it? You understand? So, yeah, if you're going to have wives or whatever, then you got to be able to take care of the situation, got to be well-to-do enough, etc. And it needs to be done in a controlled manner and controlled way. Yeah, because you've got to protect the genes. And this is the most important scenario, situation, if we're going to get ourselves out of the situation that we find ourselves in today. Yeah, women cannot continue to be a dumping ground for male lust, but then women's newfound power, let's say, and sexual orientation and sexual expression has to, nature didn't put you in position to go mad, you understand, out here, because the consequence of that is that the genes now are tampered with, and it makes it more difficult to produce supreme beings, as well as kill your own divine ascension pathway. And so we were in a situation where we were following these rules of religion, you understand, and the right knowledge, they were taken away. There's no rules. Now you have an understanding why we have certain things in place, cultural norms, etc., have in place. They're not just something you're following out of ignorance. You understand why, you understand, you wouldn't sleep with another man's wife or another man's wife, whatever, to cause this genetic confusion. Humans kill each other. So for peace, for liberty, there's certain things we might culturally observe to keep the peace. There's certain things we might culturally observe not to, as a male, mess up a woman's genes or mess up her ascension pathway if we haven't got, long-term intentions and right intentions by that woman. Not, this thing of, well, I told her what it was from the beginning. Why not just not do it? Do you understand? Yeah? I told her what it was from the beginning. Therefore, if I behave like a, like a dumper, then I told her what it was, so she can't hold me accountable. But the reality of the situation is, when you know who the woman is and you know who you're dealing with, then as it was expressed, I think in one of the parts of that, maybe Women on the Planet Earth, one of those parts of acts, is saying that part of the time we're going to hold the male accountable for any behavior because they protect the woman. So whether it catches you in this one or the next life, you understand, they're going to hold the man accountable for that type of behavior. You understand? So a lot of social media, a lot of, we're seeing through the music or the change in music, the modern kind of music that's being expressed. We're seeing strippers and drug dealers as the new superheroes. This is because, as I say, this religiosity mentality where the wrong is being promoted as if it's right. And if I can get enough people to, accept the wrong as right, then the wrong becomes right. You understand? This is religiosity. In the religions today, they convince people to accept wrong information as right. And the more people that accept that, it makes them feel comfortable and it makes them feel like they're right, even though they're not right. You understand? It's called religiosity, and it permeates itself in this situation. So strippers, whatever, I'm not saying it doesn't, I'm not judging a person's job. You want to strip. You understand? But in a cultural setting, most people would not want their daughters to be stripping. Do you understand? They prefer them to be doctors. Understood? So in that regard, let's not be fake. Yes? By now this new thing, we don't judge the person. The person is judged because strippers don't get respect in society in that regard for being strippers. So the reality is that the more people accept it as legitimate, then that it becomes or feels like in certain instances that that's the norm. You understand? When in actuality, it is still really, when you think about the whole thing of that industry, what is it? It's subjugating the woman to male lust. So still problematic, you understand, in that regard. So it's not liberation in that regard. Yeah, because the whole thing is set up to, as I say, support male lust. So let's just, why not work to eliminate it and control or subdue our passions, as they say in masonry, on both sides. Okay, so let's see if we can get to a natural end. Okay, yeah, let's try and wind it up. So I'll finish off with this then. So basically, the science of the two mouths. So whatever a woman takes in her system. So when you, so like the mouth in your head, whatever you take in, your tongue analyzes it, and then it becomes part of your being. That's why they say you are what you eat. So the science of the two mouths is saying basically the woman's vaginal area, which is another orifice, whatever goes into that orifice, yes, is also analyzed and becomes part of the person's being. Do you understand? So the science of two mouths means that whatever you take in becomes part of you. So that's what you need to be mindful of. Yeah, when we're thinking about love and all these different words, or lust, or engaging relationships, or even, as I say, on the male side, participating in relationships is that you're going to be part of that woman's being. Do you understand? In that regard, yeah. So, as a mouth, you have to treat it as another mouth. Yeah. So God knows your mouth. If you wouldn't, for example, or you'd be cautious about drinking from just any stranger's glass. You'd be cautious about that. You wouldn't drink from a dirty glass. You wouldn't drink from food that fell on the floor. Do you understand? You wouldn't eat food that you didn't know was fully what it was that you were eating. Do you understand? You wouldn't drink normally from a drink that you didn't know fully what you were drinking. Do you understand? So if you saw an open can on a supermarket shelf or whatever, you're not going to choose the open can. You're going to choose the closed can of drink. If you saw an open bottle, you're going to drink that. You're going to drink from the sealed version. You understand? So in the same way, lust can cause us to override these thinkings, because let's be honest, when we're in the moment or whatever, yeah, we put our tongue where we don't usually put our tongue. We put a lot of things that we wouldn't usually put them in, you understand, because of lust. Yeah, so this is the things that we need to think about what we're doing. Do you understand? Again, nothing's off the table in terms of if that's what people like and what's in the bedroom, whatever the case may be, between two consenting adults. But it's just saying, before you even get to that point, you have to check who your partner is, because whatever you take in, that's going to be part of you, at least for up to 9 years, unless you remove it by way of a ritual. 6, 7, 9. So let's go 6, 7, 8. So it says, and know this, Sabians, or Wapians, the feminine has two mouths, the perpendicular mouth, or her raham womb, called vagina. It has both the raham womb and mouth containing the chromosomes, DNA, the genome of ontology, or what they call genome-ontology, DNA, God ontology. So here in the previous diagram, you can see that all life forms on the planet clearly are linked or interlinked. Understood? Yes, and so our species has a origin point or starting point as a race. In the Holy Tablets, in the first chapter, it talks about us obviously remembering ourselves as single cell amoebas, you understand, that were placed in the waters here. So you have an age as an individual within, I suppose, what they call set time, isn't it? Yes. But then we have an age as a race of what we call time period of race from our origin, the first cells being placed in the waters here, to obviously the continuing of our race, do you understand? Which is obviously 46 trillion on into 76 trillion years old, if we're going back to who we truly are. You understand? But here, at least on planet Earth, there is an ontology and a link to the different ways in which life forms here interact with each other and how they have evolved over time. Do you understand? We call it evolve or revolved for us over time. For we've gone from a single cellular life form, protozoas, etc., to where we are today, a much more highly sophisticated, complex life form. This is all part of our ontogeny. Yes, in that regard. What they're talking about here, the God genes. So ontogeny is the life cycle from an organism from its origin, from the fertilized oocyte or egg to the organism's mature state or form, and can encompass the complete lifespan. 680. And what makes knowledge of this so important is whatever enters the sacred garden of delight is immediately analyzed, distributed into your demand blood as a sacred feminine, and as an internal creature becomes part of you. So woman is an internal being, male is external. 681. Whatever you put in or allow to enter your raham womb or mouth, a message is immediately sent to the damag brain, to the subconscious, to see what it is and the effect it can and would have on your inner and outer being. 682, feminine. You must know that just as when you put something inside your famam mouth, you have DNA in there and senses to detect and dissect what it is. 683, as your Lasan tongue has taste centers for sweet, bitter, and sour, also nerves for hot, cold, soft, and hard. 684, so also your raham womb has the same. 685, nothing should be entered into your womb that is unnatural, such as rubber or plastic, except in surgery or internal cleaning and investigating. Yet never left in your raham womb, or it will compute it as acceptable and it becomes part of your reproduction system. 686, know before what you allow inside your raham womb, as you should your famam mouth. 687, knowing that whatever or whomever will mix in with your own DNA and becomes part of your being and can kill your pure feminine, as with masculine will attack your heroine, her o ein, the divine feminine hero in life. 688, each male you allow to enter your raham womb departs, yet leaves behind part of his DNA to become part of your own. 689, each male you allow to enter your mouth, be it tongue kiss or genetic kiss or oral sexual pleasure, even before he ejaculates, once he exits, yet leaves behind part of his DNA to become part of your own. 690, soon as you taste his flesh or swallow his semen, in both cases, he becomes part of you. 691, the more or different men you allow to deposit his DNA into your being does and will affect your natural nature. 692, just as once masculine ejaculates in your womb, your natural feminine will fight to kill off his sperm to only allow one to hang on to the ovum for reproduction. 693, so also masculine liquids of any kind that enters your body has an effect on you. Your body fights it. 694, just as you naturally don't like when a male sweats on you, this is all from your inside being. Study how your body reacts to masculine sperm. Yeah, I think we've covered this before about getting on your nerves, so I'm not going to cover that. So this is what we're dealing with, yeah? So acknowledging that becomes part of your being. Do you understand? And so very important to guard both mouths, yeah? And get back to, the true kind of sacred feminine that now we're being retaught about, and both women have to respect it to become it, and males have to respect it to treat the woman with the appropriate level of care so she can flourish into and grow into who she truly needs to be for the betterment and survival, really, of our race. Let's keep it 100. So here's a few sayings, and we'll close out on this from Lotus of Life as it pertains to relationships. There's the 100 sayings applying Ba'h B'ah Yaanuwn, relation to the sacred feminine, and relationships. So 1, treat each feminine adult as if she is your own mother. 9, remember natural nature grew feminine to grow masculine. She is closer to the creators. Yeah, all things that we've kind of been talking about in this class, correct? Yeah, to the original source. 11, no feminine should be hit by a masculine or even by another once he stops going to temple, stops going to lodge meetings, stops praying, stops chanting, stops attending Wu-Sabat events. Get away from him. He will lead you astray, as in Rosemary's Baby. So anybody who's watched that movie knows that the husband of the part of Rosemary basically sacrificed his wife's womb because he wanted a better acting career, successful acting career, and basically caused his woman to be part of an order that she was not aware of. And they sort of drugged her, impregnated her to allow one of the sons of these 13 sons of the devil, as they call it, to come through in the San Dakota house. So be careful where your man leads you in that regard. 17, do not marry for looks, they fade with time. 19, a masculine without a job is going to be a job to support. Understood? 23, deity is not masculine, nor he, not him. Deity is both, as creation is both in Wu-Sabat. 26, feminine and masculine are equal as teachers of Wu-Sabat. 31, the word wife does not mean slave or servant in Wu-Sabat. 32, one kiss can lead to more than you expected. So you can see all wise words, things that we've been talking about today in some detail. 27, Wu-Sabat is not Islamism. You don't live by their laws on how feminine should dress or act in life. 28, Wu-Sabat is not Christianism. You don't live by their laws on how feminine should dress or act in life. 29, Wu-Sabat is not Hebrewism, Israelitism. We don't live by their laws on how feminine should dress and act in life. So this is explained to us that basically we have our own rules and know why we're doing it. Do you understand? Know why we move a certain way. Do you understand? Know what is regal versus not regal. You understand? And women informed making those decisions for themselves, for the betterment, as I say, for us living together in peaceful coexistence as Naga-Nadu, Negroids. 37, feminine love to be noticed. This does not mean touched. Yeah, very important male discipline in that regard. Yeah, and I think it's also no one about there, which is don't interpret what's the effect of, don't interpret a woman being friendly with an individual yourself as a male, for example, or even maybe to the extent of even flirting, as that means, oh, the woman's into me, when they're just being friendly. You understand? So it's another area in that regard to consider. Now, 44, no feminine can replace your mother, and no masculine can ever replace your father. Yeah, so it's an important thing here is looking for one's father or looking for a mother in your partner. You understand? Your partner is your partner. They're not those issues. So if you've got those issues, you need to resolve them. Not looking for that in a relationship. In a very dangerous approach. You can make poor or bad decisions in that regard by taking that approach, if that's what you're doing, and you may not even realize it. 49, look at yourself before others judge you. 67, inner beauty never fades. Inner beauty never fades. Yeah, important. 78, feminines and masculines should always be clean, dressed neat, and smell fresh in Wu-Sabat. 56, respect is more important than love. Interesting one there. 85, masculine must support his household. 86, feminine must support her household. So these roles, I think it's one of those things that comes up very often who's supposed to be doing what in the house. And so in parts of that, we must express this before, but it should be just simply a case of if you're working and your woman's not working, then she should help around, take care of the house, whatever, cook, clean, if that's what needs to be done. If you're the male and your woman's working and you're not working, then you should cook, clean, be doing stuff around the house, if that's the same regard. And if you're both working, they need to work out a system where it's shared. So a woman was never designed to be a helpmate, say for the male. Obviously, when it comes to raising children, you need to work that situation out because obviously a woman needs to be with her child. She's breastfeeding in that regard. So as a male, you need to do a lot of different things around and be the helpmate to that situation. So what works best for your household. But as I say, we have roles, but the woman was not supposed to be a servant, as I say, to her man. 50, find a good feminine is as hard as finding a good masculine. 60, people have weaknesses, both masculine and feminine. That's one of the reasons why you might choose a partner that offsets your weaknesses and vice versa. 69, feminine need to spend time together without masculines. That's good, yeah, important point there. Not to trip on it, you understand? Just create all women-only sessions or events in detriment to the masculine, but they should spend time together without masculines. 91, maybe vice versa. Your wife should also be your best friend as Sabians. 92, your husband should also be your best friend as Sabians. 98, masculine, stop underestimating feminine. Okay, that's important. You want the full 100 of those, then definitely check that out. She hasn't even let her hear what Partner Bab is explaining to you. Also finish on these few slides. 195, this is the gospel of sacred feminine. Says it is time for you to wake up. 1096, break the spell of ignorance about your true feminine natural nature as mother of all living. You are to be worshipped. You are to be adored. You are to be admired. You are to be esteemed. You are to be revered. You are to be extolled. You are to be venerated. You are to be appreciated. You are to be lauded. You are the mother of both mothers and fathers. 1097, yet none of this means anything if you choose to be less than a goddess. 1098, none of it means a thing if you lost your divine inner being to your physical outer body, if you offer your divinity to the world for worldly things. This is a sacred doctrine of the feminine. Yeah, those who have it here, let them hear. Yeah, what Ba'h B'ah Yaanuwn says to the people, and just to show you that how this doctrine aligns itself. This is what 1992. Yeah, the truth, Holy Tabernacle, Most High. Yeah, some fairly ancient now, but doesn't feel ancient. But you see here this article in this book, the liberator of women. You see here, who is actually liberator of women? To the vast majority of the Arab world, the woman is indebted to Ahmed Muhammad. To them, he raised women's status as a daughter, wife, and mother. He reminded everyone of the modesty, chastity, and purity of the woman. Sounds nice, doesn't it? Yet, as we are in the last decade of the 20th century, we see hardly any liberation of Arab women at all. We can see that even in the media now. Remember the situation where the woman was killed for not wearing her head covering, as they call it, a hijab. You understand? But even back then, under the guise of the religious cloaking, as we see here in the Holy Tabernacle, the daughters of Abraham are no longer veiled. They can be seen teaching congregations as well as leading prayer. Women can address forums, drive, do everything men can. Although the ability to do these things comes with liberation, they are not the sole purpose. The important thing is that women now have a choice to be saved or doomed, contrary to following a husband, father, etc., just because he says so. So when we come back to the original question, who is the actual liberator of women? It is I, the Lamb of Yahuwah Elo, who has indeed liberated the daughters of Abraham. It is evident women can do lots of things men do, but this liberation will only succeed if women want it. if women really do not want to be suppressed and depressed any longer, they would welcome this with open arms. Remember, the sustainer does not change the conditions of people unless they change themselves. So even back then, yeah, it's been spoon-fed. You know what I mean? Not even spoon-fed. This is fairly obvious, but of putting a woman back in position of power. And so this was always there, even when we went under the schools, as I say, to remove this spell of Leviathan, as it's called in this day and time, from our genetics. Okay, right. So that's the end. So we're looking to be more consistent. These classes or previous sessions are our YouTube channel. Our next class is due on the 6th of November, and you can follow us on Facebook if you choose to do so. And our events page tells you when the next classes are, also the details of what classes. So I'm not sure at this stage what class is going to be on the 6th of November, but you can guarantee it's going to be something interesting. Any questions? Let's check in. Okay, well, thanks for staying on a bit longer today after a rough start. But as I say, trust you got some new knowledge or some understanding out of what you've heard today. And as I say, if you're willing, please join us on the next class on the 6th of November. If you want more information about who we are as Sabians, UnitedSabiansWorldwide.com. You can join up with that, or just to say partake in, say, more culture information if you so choose to do so. Okay. Right. Okay. No problem. Appreciate that. So, okay. So everybody, appreciate you staying on today. Trust it, as I say, you've learned something. Give praise to our ancestors, and more importantly, to Dr. Malachi Z York, Ba'h B'ah Yaanuwn. Without him and their sacrifices that have been made, this information and our story would not be renewing itself. And all this fantastic information that's transforming lives all over the world in this day and time. So appreciate everybody. Stay safe. Take care. And we will see you next time on the 6th of November. Take care all.